Okay, and I think we are live. Can we mute the TV? Are we going to watch the TV? Our chairs in our dining room are loud. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. Let me mute this thing here so we're not in stereo. Yo, Evan the Nerd, what's up? I don't pull that off very well, I don't think. My voice sounds higher pitched. I can tell I have to relax. I'm a little tense. Ooh, yeah. Somebody I can't remember asked if they could propose to me during the live stream, and I said, well, I think my husband might mind, but it's still nice. I don't remember who it was. I have to go look. That's probably insulting. Hey, damn gypsy. I always want to say it like that. Hey, hi. I think it was Tank Callie. No, it's I have to go back and look and see who it was that said that. I cannot remember. It was in the community tab area. Like when I was asking for requests. Oh no. I can't remember who said it. They'll pop up in the live stream soon, probably anyways, though. So Evil Satyr, hello. Tank Callie, hello. Who did I miss? Cats, hello. Zena, hello. And Isaiah, who I believe is listening also. And go back. Let's see. Swedish Mom, hello. Should just went in order because I think I skipped someone. Element, which I don't know if Element's still here or not. So there was I ran a poll on Twitter and YouTube to see which night you guys wanted me to do a live stream, and Saturday night almost won, but here we are. See someone saying hi Merritt, and I don't see anyone named Merritt in the area. Hey Gling. I've seen that multiple times where someone says hi Merritt, and then I don't see anyone named Merritt in the chat box, but it's me. Swedish Mom is Merritt. Oh, okay. I get it now. All right. Duh. Thank you for your service. My husband was just chasing a baby raccoon out of our yard, and I want to keep them as pets, but he thinks that they might be a problem as they get older because we noticed that there were 3 just outside of our fence. And I don't know. You haven't seen the mom, have you? You haven't seen the mom?
No.
So hopefully the mom comes back at night because the babies are just little. So well, they're not like little. You know, if they were cats, I'd say they were like between the 6 and 8 month range, something like that. And I don't know how you age raccoons because I've never had a pet raccoon. Oh, your name was Mare before. Oh, they're so cute. The baby raccoons are so cute. Tim Willis, hello. Did I miss anybody? If I did, I'm so sorry. I have all your requests set aside. I'm not sure. I want to go in order, but there's one that's like almost to the end. So as Smoky Mountain reads, I'll tell you who made requests, and then if anybody else made a request or wants to, you can at the end. But I don't know if we'll have enough time. Gling requested strange and creepy disappearances in national parks. Arthur Valdez, who I don't see here yet, he requested scary night drive stories. Element wanted near death experiences. I found some, but I don't know if they're scary. Tank Callie wanted scary vacation stories. Evan the Nerd has a story to contribute also. Xena said that Isaiah wanted to know about the Midnight Man, but she wanted to know about the folklore behind it. And actually, the folklore behind the Midnight Man is the Midnight Game, and I recorded that like 3 years ago in I think October. And that's what supposedly if you play the Midnight Game, which you shouldn't play anyway, then you conjure the Midnight Man. Smoky Mountain Reads wanted bad trip stories, like on drugs. Found some of those too. And I actually have like a personal like townie that relates to it. So I've told you about that. That guy that there's a guy in town that he's always been like a figure in town. And supposedly this story is like when he was getting out of school, he took too much acid and he never came off the trip, which I've heard of that happening to many people before, like in the 60s. So he will year round drive a bike around town, and it doesn't matter if it's 90 degrees, he'll have a helmet on, three shirts, a winter coat, and he will ride that bike miles out of town on roads that like there's horrible traffic and there's no sidewalks. It's really unsafe. And he's got a big orange flag on the back of his bike, which I think somebody donated a new bike to him at one time because one got ruined. But we used to have a Hardee's in town, which now it's Tim Hortons, but he'd always, like, hang out in there and try to smoke they had, like, decorative fake, like, big palm leaf plants, and he'd try to smoke those leaves from the fake plants. Oh my gosh, let's see, and then Laura Labs wanted ghost stories, so I found but it's always kinda crazy because you don't want him to get hurt. Mainly, I've seen him, like, in town occasionally, like, on the slower roads, but once in a while, I'll still see him, like, way out of town, like, going toward, like, Genesis and stuff like that, so dem crazy trolls. Element, hello? Did I miss anybody? Evil Satyr, I said hello to you, didn't I? Tank Callie, yeah. Alright. So we are gonna get started with some I was gonna give everybody a few minutes to get here. Let me see here. Does anybody know how to care for baby raccoons in case we can't get rid of them? Because I don't wanna hurt them. But we have a very full house right now. I have no room for raccoons. We have 2 cats, a dog. Um, we have 6 people that live in our house, 2 cats and a dog. So we do not have a large house, mind you. We have no room for more animals, sadly. Sadly to me, because I would take on lots of animals if we could. I know you're really upset about that, aren't you, honey? Yeah, I mean, I know that he wants them. I wouldn't mind having a farm, but not where we eat the animals, maybe eggs for, like, cooking and stuff, but I would never, like, raise cows because I don't even drink cow milk, and I would just, like, have them as pets. So, raccoons like cat food? Yeah, but we probably shouldn't feed them, right? Because then they're just gonna come. Okay, yeah. I don't want them to get hurt, but I also don't want, like I don't want our dog to hurt them, so who is he, her? What? Who is he, her? Oh, who am I talking to? My husband. Wait a minute. Them crazy trolls. Did I missed something here. Um, I wanted to warn you that a YouTuber just posted a video about a troll finding out where he lives and was showing up at his house. Be careful. Oh, honey, you have no idea how much pent-up aggression I have. Bring it on. I got a couple bats in my house just waiting for somebody to screw with me. Oh gosh. Just exercise. That's just exercise, baby. That's just little workout. Okay. Okay, I'd like to see a baby raccoon. They will start to depend on you for food. Yeah, that's what I don't want him to get hurt though. It looked like he was coming up to the house because they're hungry. But I know there's like lots of berries in the woods back there and stuff, so all right. It looks like there's plenty of people here. So we can start with who did I say? Gling, you were the first one to request something. Except for Element, you've been requesting this for a long time. So I'll read yours after this one. How about that? I'll read your near death experiences after Gling's national park disappearances. And these are some of these are older. This one's from like 1928, Bessie and Glenn Hyde. So I don't know if you guys have heard this or not. And these two were honeymooning in northern Arizona at the Grand Canyon when they vanished. They were traveling down the Colorado River by scow. What's that mean? Is that the type of boat? In October of 1928 and planned to boat through the Grand Canyon. Bessie would have been the first woman ever to do so successfully. Glenn had run through the rivers before, but Bessie was a boating newbie. The couple ran across other boaters a few weeks before their disappearance who said they got the feeling that Bessie wanted to turn back, but Glenn was pushing her on. If they completed the trip successfully, they could go on a paid lecture tour. So this trip was more than just fun. There was money at stake. Have you guys ever heard of this before? Let me check the chat and see if you guys have heard of this before. Breaking the shell. Okay. Cut to several months later. The Hyde's boat was discovered that winter seemingly undisturbed. It was upright and full of supplies, but the couple was gone. There are many theories about what happened to the Hydes. Did they disembark and try to do too difficult a side hike? Did they have an argument that turned violent? Or were they abducted? There are conflicting reports about what happened to the Hydes and more than one Bessie Hyde sighting in the years that followed. I don't know. That's kind of crazy. Oh my gosh. Okay. There's another one that's from 1938. What's that? Swedish mom breaking the shell. No, no, nope. Okay, Gling. Oh, you guys have not heard of this. Okay. This one's Alfred Beilhart's 1938. Mainly, I think most people have heard the recent disappearances, but I think that people disappearing the way that they disappear from in the 411 incidences is what I think that you were looking for. But honestly, those are hard to find to read for you because they're literally like case points. So they're not broken up to read like that. And most people have already read all of those for YouTube repeatedly. And so they're kind of hard to find and just like let's see. Alfred Beilhart's 1938. 5-year-old Alfred is the first recorded drowning in Colorado's Rocky Mountain National Park. Though whether Beilhart's actually drowned is controversial. He was camping in the park with his family over the July 4th weekend when he disappeared near the Roaring and Fall rivers. Beilhartz had gone with his dad to bathe in the river, and from there he decided to join two family friends at a spot about 500 feet upstream where he and his father entered the river. When everyone returned to camp, they realized he was missing. A search began immediately, expanding to more than 100 civilian Conservation Corps members within 45 minutes. But there was barely a sign of Beilhardt anywhere. A day after he disappeared, a couple hiking about 6 miles away from their campsite reported seeing a boy who looked like Alfred sitting in an area called the Devil's Nest. By the time authorities arrived, though, the boy was gone. The search went on for 10 days and included 150 men plus bloodhounds, though the size of the search party had dwindled to a dozen by the end of the 8th day. Oh no. You okay over there? Did you hit your ankle or something? You did? Oh, poor baby. Let me see and check the chat real quick. What's the difference between top chat and live chat? Top chat? What do you mean? I don't think there is a difference. Some messages, such as potential spam, may not be visible in the top chat, is what it says. Live chat says all messages are visible. So let's do the live chat. Let's see here. I don't see anything that we didn't already put cat food in your neighbor's door. I just saw that, Zena. God, my husband always forgets our windows are open. Jesus. Catherine Van Alst, 1946. I don't know if these are all from a really long time ago, but at least we haven't heard them, and that's kind of always the goal. So 8-year-old Catherine disappeared from Devil's Den State Park near Arkansas's Ozark National Forest, where she and her family were camping. She was apparently playing with her brothers when she wandered off and got lost. And what makes her disappearance remarkable is that when she was found after 6 days wandering the woods, she was eerily calm. See, now this sounds more like one of the missing 411 incidences, but let's go on. University of Arkansas student Porter Chadwick was part of the search that found her. He told the Pittsburgh Press that when he found her, she walked stoically out of a cave and just said, "Here I am." Many other hikers have gotten lost in that part of the Ozarks and have not been as lucky as her. A grown woman was there for 17 days and died just 50 yards from the road. That's crazy. A fan of David Paulide's book has taken several 360-degree panoramic shots of a few locations where people have mysteriously vanished, and you can see the area where she had went missing. The person who compiled these panoramas suspects abduction. In the shot, you can see places where an attacker, whether human or animal, may have hidden in thick brush or behind rock outcroppings. If it was indeed an abductor, was it someone or something lurking in the devil's den? I don't know, because I think that you can tell the definite difference between a human or animal in the woods. Definitely. I mean, sight, sound, tracks, but I mean, only a human would cover up their prints. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't see any prints, I would suspect a person because they're the ones that would, like, go back and cover up their tracks. Let's see. My mom likes to listen to you too, Duchess. She just peeked in my room. Oh, yay. Hello. Hello, cat's mom. They maybe ran away and changed names. I changed my name. I've never heard of these ones before. Oh, cool. Cool. There are still members of his family with the name Hitler. Oh, yeah. There's a whole, isn't it called Finding Hitler? I think it's on the History Channel. So if you guys haven't seen that, I don't even know if it's still on anymore, but there's a whole bloodline supposedly relating to Hitler, many of which claim that he's still alive or he lived to be an old man because they have like supposedly photographic evidence. But I don't think anyone's real proud of him, related or not. Let me see here. Oh, I never pushed next. All right, so there's going to be, of course, an ad. Oh no, this one is Larry Jeffrey in 1966. Let me see here. Again, I've never heard of this one. Right off the bat, it doesn't sound familiar. He disappeared near the peak of 12,000 foot Mount Charleston in Humboldt, Toyabe National Forest. I'm sorry, I know I butchered that word. I'm so sorry. Just a short drive from Las Vegas. Now, the search began immediately after the boy wandered away from his brothers, and within days, the National Guard and a team of bloodhounds had joined the search. In a TV interview, David Paulides told reporter George Knapp, who also hosts the Coast to Coast AM radio show, that there were no predators afoot that day, and since the area they were in was pretty secluded, it's easy to rule out an abduction by car. This boy just walked into oblivion. When Jeffrey disappeared, he was wearing light clothing, and authorities were doubtful he could survive the cold temperatures at night. Searchers found and lost the trail a few times, and they discovered evidence that the boy had been eating insects and foraged berries along the way. Overall, around 1,000 people searched for 16 days, but never found him. Whoa, that's crazy. No one's heard of that one either? Finding Hitler was a good show. They found good evidence in the Argentina area. Yeah, they did. They think that he migrated, and there were tunnels out of his bunker, isn't that right? And they were supposed to be for evacuation purposes, but he was the only one that used them. Michael, remember that? Yeah. So there's several claims that he, in fact, didn't die during the raid. He actually escaped and lived a long, is either still alive or lived to be an old man, and supposedly have, yeah, turn the water on. It's fine. But I mean, don't you think he would change his name? Many of the people that like served Hitler were charged later because most of them did change their name and hide, and then they were discovered later. So I would definitely change my name, but I don't think if my name was Hitler, I wouldn't be known for what he's known for anyway. So don't do bad things. Still got to change your name. Problem solved. Many thinks Elvis and Michael Jackson are alive too. Yeah. I mean, that's what happens when you put like people on a pedestal and they just become like so idealistic in your head that they're no longer human. Hey, Paul Kate, hello. Hitler would be over 100 years old today. He did. Element. Yeah, right, exactly. I still like if I was born into a family and my last name was Hitler, I probably still would change it, even if we weren't direct descendants. Yikes. Now, this one is Dennis Martin in 1969. Dennis Martin was on a camping trip near the Tennessee North Carolina state line with his family in the summer of 1969. It was an annual Father's Day tradition. All of the men in the Martin family headed to Smoky Mountain National Park to camp and hike. Dennis and his brothers had planned a prank on the adults. They were each going to jump out on different sides of the campsite to scare them. It's a pretty typical prank that should have ended with some startled shouts and then a lot of laughter. But the laughter ended quickly when they realized that Dennis was missing. Families, family, park rangers, and other hikers spread out to search for Dennis almost immediately, but he was nowhere to be found. That evening, there was heavy rainfall, which is bad news when you're trying to track a missing little boy. The search for Martin became the largest in National Park Service history. One of the people searching was Park Ranger Dwight McCarter, who had successfully tracked down hundreds of missing persons, including young children. McCarter was a seasoned tracker, and he was struck by the complete lack of any sort of tracks. Dennis seemed to have disappeared completely, leaving no trace at all. His disappearance is still a mystery. One possible lead that searchers didn't follow was a report from another family the evening the boy went missing. The Key family allegedly heard a scream, then saw a bear man with something slung over its shoulder that looked like it could be a small child. We'll never know whether this was related to Martin's disappearance. That's terrifying. And that's one of the things I think that people don't take into consideration when they go hiking in a place like that. There could be all kinds of people living in those parks for decades and no one would know it because they've learned how to live off the land and they stay out of sight. Not only is there a conspiracy theory that Britney Spears died in a car accident back in the yeah. Not only did he ruin his last name, but also the name of Adolf. I mean, Adolf. I don't know anyone who's going to purposely name their kid Adolf ever. Do you? Maybe in a different country where it's like everyone, like here, Amy is a common name. Is Adolf maybe a common name elsewhere? I think that even in Germany, it'd be like, no, anything but Adolf. She told them to hit her one more time and then she died. Oh my gosh, that's my husband saying that. Yeah, there's a whole several video conspiracy theories on Avril Lavigne. I think Shane Dawson did one too. Oh no, it's Bear Man Pig. Bear Man Pig. Tupac is still alive too. They did a hologram of him for a concert, I think it was, wasn't it? I don't know. Crystal Seacrest. Bear Man makes me think Bigfoot. All right, Smokey. Yours isn't until the end, and we've only just started. So we are on disappearances, and this was a request by Gling. She wanted to know about weird disappearances. So we're doing, I think there's 10 of these. So we are on number 4. Douglas Legg, 1971. Douglas Legg and some of his family was heading out for a hike in the Adirondack. 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 Thank you. Forest Preserve's Santanani Preserve when his uncle spotted poison ivy and told him to put on long pants to protect himself. The family's cabin was a short, straight shot from where they were, but Douglas never returned. Unlike a lot of the kids who have gone missing in national parks, Legg was very familiar with these woods. His family owned the cabin where they were staying and described him as a mini woodsman because they all hiked there together so often. Legg's disappearance sparked one of the southern Adirondacks. How did you say that? Adirondacks' largest search and rescue missions, with more than 600 people searching the woods. But like David Gonzalez, Legg left no trail. Unlike in the Gonzalez case, though, rescuers used dogs in their search. Some accounts describe dogs following Legg's scent over a 30-mile trail through difficult terrain. How could a young child have traveled alone for such a distance? Some searchers reported seeing bear-like tracks near the site, which would explain it. While black bears do drag their prey to cover, dragging someone 30 miles over difficult terrain seems unusual. The family became desperate and began suspecting each other and even their friends of abducting him. The police were certain that the mini woodsman had simply gotten lost and was never found, which is unlikely. A little kid that's been to a spot, even if he's a little kid, if he's been there and he's described by his family as a mini woodsman, have you ever seen how fast a little kid that's exposed to an environment like that really knows some they know some shit that most adults don't know. Some serious survival skills when they're trained like that. And I'm not trying to make them sound like, you know, they're any like less intelligent and quite the contrary. But when someone's exposed to that kind of education, I guess that's what I'll say, an outdoors education, they are very savvy. Even very young kids are. So the fact that it could 30 miles, I mean, that's obvious. I mean, someone took him, so but who would have taken him? His uncle said I mean, it's obvious. I think his uncle would have been the number one prime suspect, but it doesn't say he was. So what was Emily saying when she was in here? Oh, have heard that since dogs tracking these people in national parks have just stopped and laid down. They refuse to continue searching. Yeah, and that's another reason to get really into it. How old is this kid? How old was he? I don't know. I don't remember. It didn't say. They just said very young. That's what they said. I don't remember them saying an age. Yes, thank you, husband, for the correct pronunciation of the mountain range. How? He knows that because the Red Wings used to have a minor league team there. That's the only reason why he knows it. I don't care. Kudos. Thank you, honey. All right. John Devine, 1997. So not I think we're counting up closer, so. Now, according to Peninsula Daily News, Olympic National Park in northern Washington state has a feature that's not as majestic as its mountain views. At least 4 hikers have mysteriously disappeared from the area in the past 25 years, one of whom was 73-year-old, clear age there, John Devine. In 1997, Devine planned to hike into the park from Mount Baldy. Sorry. There is a trail that is tough 24 miles, and though Devine was elderly, he was also experienced as a long-distance hiker. Devine was camping with his friend Greg Balzer. They split up on that day that Devine went missing. And Balzer Sorry, I'm immature. Balzer went off to hunt while Devine took off on a day hike. Devine never returned. The fruitless search for Devine lasted a full week until a rescue helicopter crash killed 3 people and injured 5 others. And by that time, weather conditions had deteriorated, making the chances of finding Devine slim. Friends and family said that Devine wouldn't want to put people in danger on his behalf, and the search was called off. The search helicopter's crash is as mysterious as Divine's disappearance. Before takeoff, the pilot used a hand signal indicating that he was going to wait 5 minutes for conditions to improve before attempting it. A moment later, the helicopter departed vertically without warning and crashed into the side of the mountain. That's weird. I wonder if there's some sort of like electromagnetic field around some of these things because, they say that like water and limestone are all like conductors of, well, they say paranormal, but I think they're conductors of energy. So what about in these stone, if in these mountains, in these mountain areas, because of certain rock formations, what if there's some sort of like electromagnetic fields that are making things like that go kind of haywire? Is that too far fetched? Well, anything, but also, like, where someone said when the dogs go looking for people and then they just stop, maybe there's something in them that feels that other people that people can't feel. So, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's plausible. Well, a magnetic field isn't exactly magnets, but I mean, I wonder if it's a theory that's been tested, and that's an entire discussion within itself, so but it is something to think about. Well, maybe. Because they said, like, somebody said the Bermuda Triangle, but the Michigan has its own within one of the Great Lakes also. There's a whole area there that's supposed to be, like, our own Bermuda Triangle, so energy flows through everything in one way or another. Right, and that's why it's saying right, but I digress. So David Gonzalez, which was mentioned in another case there in 2004, at 8 a.m. On a July day in 2004, David Gonzalez asked his mother if he could have the car keys. There was a box of cookies in the car and he wanted a treat. The car was only 50 yards away, and his mother watched him as he walked to the parking lot near the Big Bear Lake campsite in Northern California's San Bernardino Valley. So, San Bernardino National Forest. Good Lord. Sorry, everyone. She turned her back for a second, and when she looked around again, Gonzalez was gone. His mother reported that she heard no sound at all when her back was turned, though she did see a beige truck speeding out of the campground site around the time that her son went missing. Since there were no signs of abduction, authorities did not pursue that lead. That seems idiotic. The cookies that Gonzalez went to get were still in the family's locked van, so he never even made it to the car. Rescue teams in the Bernardino my God, Bernardino County, oh my God, damn, scoured the woods for Gonzalez. They found no signs of a struggle or of the boy. The search went on for 9 days, but rescuers never found him alive. Almost a year later, hikers stumbled upon the boy's remains about a mile from his family's campsite. Authorities chalked this up to a mountain lion attack. But how could a mountain lion have silently dragged a 9-year-old boy a mile without leaving any blood or signs of a struggle? I think that's lazy detective work right there. First of all, you would have if you sectioned off the crime scene or secured it, you would have saw traces of blood, signs of a struggle, drag marks because, mountain lions are strong, but they're not so strong to like pick up a 9-year-old who, they're not adult size, but they're not a baby. They're gonna leave a mark. They're gonna get dragged. A 9-year-old? A mountain lion's gonna I mean, if you laid a mountain lion next to a 9-year-old, I don't think the 9-year-old's gonna be much shorter than the mountain lion, lengthwise. I don't think he's gonna play with it. It's like you can toss up a 9-year-old in the air like a ball. Oh my god. The emote word pun. Bernardino. Flatten Earth. Hello. Michael Bornstein. What is the dead read? What is the dead read? The live read. A mountain lion will fuck you up. Yeah, you got that right. If you're joining us, I took requests all week long, so sit back and enjoy the requests. If you guys want to get your requests in next time, make sure you're always checking my community tab because that's where I post that. I post it on there and then I post it on Twitter. And then I do polls on the community tab and also on Twitter. I used to do it on Instagram, but I don't think that too many people from Instagram come on over. So, um, oh, thank you. Love it or hate it, it is what it is. I missed the poll for this read. Well, the poll was just for the time, but I'm always taking requests. So when I ask for requests, which is about I'm got my hands full this summer, so we're gonna live stream. I'd like to post occasionally, but I'm up to my eyeballs and learning something new. I'll just leave it at that. Cramming all the information in. I'm gonna get all the stuff in. We're still on this first request here, so probably a while. We're gonna be here. We're gonna be hanging out for a while. My throat's dry already. All right, or not. Okay, this one is we're up to number 1 already. I don't know how we counted down so fast, but this is Prabdeep Saran in 2013. Um, Pradeep was a 25-year-old Canadian Army reservist who disappeared from Australia's. Oh no, it's another hard one. Kosciuszko Kosciuszko National Park, located in the southeastern state of New South Wales. Strawn was studying abroad in Australia in May of 2013 when he decided to take a 1,700-mile road trip from the Gold Coast to Melbourne. Strawn rented a van, drove to the park's Charlotte Pass in the Snowy Mountains, and no one has seen him since. The search for Strawn began when the rental company discovered that the van hadn't been returned. Strawn hadn't told anyone what route or side hikes he was planning, and the search may have started days or even a week after he went missing. Since it was the rental company that first reported the disappearance, searchers figured out his hike plans by looking at the search history on a laptop they discovered or recovered from his van. Strawn's family hired a private searcher after Australian authorities called off their search after only 2 weeks. The investigators used tower data from Strawn's phone and trained a dog to track his trail to a treacherous area called the Western Fall Wilderness. Just 1 day before his van was due back to the rental agency, Strawn embarked on a difficult and time consuming hike in snowy weather. Why would a trained military reservist make a choice like that? Despite a private search that went on for over a year, Strawn's body has never been recovered. Okay, so there's another note that says the author's note 10 mysterious disappearances in national parks. They said, my college roommate and I once went hiking on Kennesaw Mountain in North Georgia, and we managed to completely lose the trail. We were scrambling over rocks, trying to find our way back to the trail and our car. It was definitely creepy being 2 women lost and alone in the woods in Georgia. As we rounded a bend, a man who said he lived on the mountain approached us. Luckily, he turned out to be just a helpful hiker, and he showed us a quick route back to the trailhead. We were maybe a mile from our car at most and had basically been hiking in circles. Before that happened, I might have thought it was crazy that someone could just get lost so close to their campsite or fellow hikers, but I can tell you from that experience that the woods can be incredibly disorienting. And if it weren't for the fellow that helped us, who knows how long my friend and I would have wandered on the mountain. And I think that's why, like, if you go to a lot of parks that have trails like that have markers all the way up and down the trails. Like, even when we go to the Renaissance Festival, that big trail we take across, there's like pink ribbons and pink spray paint all along the thing to let you know that you're still in the right area, still, because that's kind of a long, I mean, it's not a long hike, but it's not like a short walk over to that. It's quite a little stroll over to that little area. Damn, this hits home. I live on the coast and I've never heard of this. Oh, okay. That was that request was from Gling. And next up is going to be Elements because Element has requested near death experiences for, I think, weeks now. So I'm going to read that right now for Element. Element, you are up. I don't know if these are scary, but I found near death experiences. So we'll see. We'll see. If they're not good, then we'll just move on and I'll try to get better ones next time. Okay. Okay. I say that at home all the time with no one listening. I just realized that I said it into the microphone. Oh, no. All right. You're welcome, Gling. All right. Okay. Does anybody here watch Letterkenny? Anybody in the chat watch Letterkenny? Freddie Shelton, hello. Let me see here. All right, let's read the first near-death experience and see if it's worth our creepiness here. These are 17 case studies of near-death experience. So they're sort of scientific, which I feel are always a little more creepy than someone just telling us a story. Because I feel like once there's like some sort of documentation with the story, it makes it a little more like it solidifies what happened and makes it just a little bit more creepy, which we all kind of love here, don't we? I think I'm talking really loud into the microphone, so sorry about that. Thank you, Freddie. Okay, number 1. An example of the out of body component of the near death experience is the case of Jasmine Sedavia du. Okay, I'm not even gonna continue to try and pronounce her last name because I'm gonna destroy it. So we're just gonna say Jasmine. She died on the operating table during surgery in late 1979. I must say that this experience is quite unsettling to say the least. I was floating over my body. I could see and hear everything that was being said and done. I left the room for a short while and then returned to where my body lay. I knew why I died. It was because I couldn't breathe. There was a tube down my throat, and the medical staff did not have any oxygen on my nose. I had also been given too much anesthetic. In my out of body state, I'm using my mind to try and make my right arm and hand move. My arms are extended parallel to my physical body. I want my right hand to move, anything to move. I was trying to pull the tube out of my mouth. I looked down at my face and tears were streaming. One of the nurses blotted the tears from my face, but she didn't notice my breathing had stopped, nor did she see me next to her. At this point, I'm trying really hard to make my physical arm move, but it's like my whole body is made of lead. Jasmine's determination in her out of body state was to make an arm move finally paid off. And with great clamor and commotion, the tube was pulled out, an oxygen mask attached, and her breathing restored. She had a similar near death episode when she was hospitalized at 13, and again in 1991 when she faced death a third time. The more recent occurrence resulted from a nearly fatal bout with pneumonia. Only this time she witnessed her own soul as a spirit residing outside of her body. I could see my spirit standing before me. My spirit was so beautifully perfect, dressed in a white gown that was loose, free flowing, and below the knee. From my spirit there emanated a bright, soft white halo. My spirit was standing 6 to 8 feet from my body. It was so strange, for I could see my spirit, and my spirit could see my pathetic body. Um, she goes on to talk about it in great detail. Jasmine spoke of feeling torn between two worlds, wanting to remain on Earth while at the same time feeling a strong pull to unite with her spirit self and pass on into the light. And after another round of hospitalization, she was left confused and disoriented, ready to change her life yet hesitant to begin. She lamented about the lack of people she could discuss her situation with, although her church bishop did express some degree of understanding. Her lament is commonly shared by those experiencers. Okay, so what do you guys want me to read another one? Yeah, is it creepy? I think some of it can be creepy. I think that would be very terrifying it was if it was yourself because who's gonna believe you? People are gonna think that you're hallucinating probably, right? From lack of oxygen. And so that's what most people will chalk it up to is the fact that you've lost oxygen and you're disoriented. And so that's what you're miscommunicating with your brain that you're outside of your body. But, you know, yeah. Okay. So we'll do another one. I'll try not to go into so much detail though, like if someone else goes on about something like that. But the next one is Robin Michelle Hall. Okay, I'm just gonna say Robin of Texas illustrates the overwhelming sense of love experiencers often encounter in the light. Her near death experience took place in a hospital when she was between 1 and 2 months of age. Huh? Born prematurely with hyaline membrane disease, she was not expected to live. Okay, this is weird. So, how would you remember that? My first visual memory was looking forward and seeing a brilliant, bright light, almost like looking directly at the sun. The strange thing was that I could see my feet in front of me as if I were floating upward in a vertical position. I do not remember passing through a tunnel or anything like that, just floating in a beautiful light. A tremendous amount of warmth and love came from the light. There was a standing figure in the light shaped like a normal human being, but with no distinct facial features, like a masculine presence. The light I've described seemed like it emanated from that figure. Light rays all around him. I felt protected and safe and loved. The figure in the light told me through what I now know to be mental telepathy that I must go back, that it wasn't time for me to come here. But I wanted to stay because I felt so full of joy and peace. And the voice repeated that it wasn't her time. And she told her parents about it right after she was able to speak. Whoa. Told my mom and dad about the big glass case I was in after I was born and the figure in the light and what he said to me. And they took my reference to the glass case to mean the incubator. My father was a medical student at the time, and he had read a book about near death experiences. And from comparing the information in the book with what I told them, they decided that's what I was describing. My mother told me of all this years later when I brought the subject up again. I began attending church at the age of 5, and I would look at pictures of Jesus in the Bible and tell my mom that that's who was in the light. And I still have my physical difficulties with health because of being premature, but there's a strong need inside me that I should help others with what death is and talk to terminally ill patients. I was in the other world and I know there's nothing to be afraid of after death. Well, that would give people solace, for sure. I don't know, is this creepy? Tank said it merits another. Oh, okay. He said read another. I'm sorry, I was. Oh, Swedish mom, you're getting confused because your former name was Merritt. It means it warrants another story. Yeah. Really want to write a story about near the. Yeah, you should, Evan. You should. All right. These are really long. Let me see this one. Let me see here. Yet there are cases of near death like experiences that mimic those that which occur during the trauma of death itself. This is number 4. Number 3 was kind of confusing. One of those is the story of Julian A. Milks. I met Milks on a bumpy train ride to Long Island, where I was slated to speak at a near death study group meeting in New York. He's a retired teacher and was returning that day from buying concert tickets in Times Square. And here's what he told me. So, my mother and I were driving out to the lake one afternoon. My dad was to follow later when he finished work. We were having company for dinner, and as we rode along, my mother spotted some wildflowers on the side of the road. She asked if I wouldn't mind stopping the car and picking them, as they would look nice on the dinner table. I pulled over to the right side of the road, which is not a major highway, parked the car, went down into a small incline to get off the road to pick the flowers. And while I was picking the flowers, a car came whizzing by and suddenly headed straight for me. As I looked up and saw what I presumed to be an inevitable death, I separated from my body and viewed what was happening from another perspective. My whole life flashed in front of me, from that moment backward to segments of my life. The review was not like a judgment, it was passive, more like an interesting novelty. I can't tell you how many times I think of that near death experience as I sit here and write my story for you. It seems as though it happened only yesterday. Now this man he suffered no injury. The speeding car veered off just as suddenly as it had appeared and sped away. And I have observed that the terror of an ultimate end, the kind of terror that sees no hope, no other alternative except death, is sometimes enough to shift people into a near death mode. Illness, injury, or body trauma isn't enough. And so we were talking about that movie. I was talking about a movie, I think it was from the 80s, Meryl Streep in it, and I think God, what's that guy's name? What's it called? They die, but they're like in limbo before they move on to the next thing. And it's like a review of moments in your life when you could have done the right thing or wrong thing. I can't remember what it's called, but it was funny. I'm gonna Google it actually, so if you guys want to watch it, I think it's interesting. Um, I think Judgment of Life story. I think it's called Defending Your Life. That's what it's called. And it's like they're there and they've got everyone wears white robes and it's size 70 degrees. You can eat as much as you want, you know, like you're going through like on screens and watching your life. So Flatliners. No, it's um I already forgot the name of it. I just looked it up and I forgot it already. Awesome. It's been a week like that. All right. So this one is seldom are suicide near death scenarios hell like. Contrary to popular notions, most suicide near death experiences are positive, or at least illustrative of the importance of life and its living. And although I've yet to find a suicide experience that was in any way transcendent or in depth just to have something happen, anything that affirms that he or she is loved and special seems miracle enough for the one involved. Near death survivors from suicide attempts can and often do return with the same sense of a mission that any other experiencer of the phenomenon reports. And that mission is usually to tell other potential victims that suicide is not the answer. For example, this young man. Since then, suicide has never crossed my mind as a way out. It's a cop out to me, and not the way to heaven. I wish you luck in your research and hope my experience will help stop someone from taking his own life. It's a terrible waste. Suicide near death episodes can lay to rest problems and conflicts, explain away confusions, and emphasize the need to remain embodied. Experiencers usually return with a feeling that suicide solves nothing, and they are notably renewed and refreshed by that feeling, using their near death event as a source of courage, strength, and inspiration. There's a story, I think most people have seen it, about the guy that jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a video about he jumped and he was doing the statistics of how often people jump off of it, and he survived. He survived, and he said, "You know what I thought of the second I left that bridge? I didn't wanna do it." It's of regret, 100% regret. The second that he left the bridge, he wanted to take it back. And I think that's what most people wish that they could get from someone that does take their own life. I wish they could get that confirmation that they were dark and desperate, and they wish they wouldn't have done it. Um, but not all suicide, and that was just my side note, but not all suicide scenarios are positive. Some are negative, and these can be so negative that they upset the individual more than the original problem that precipitated the suicide. This kind of devastation can be transforming as well, if used as a catalyst to help the person make the kind of changes that comprise constructive, long-term solutions. Some such changes can come from an inner awakening or from the fear that what was experienced may indeed herald the individual's final fate if something is not done to turn things around. Kind of like the last ghost in um, Scrooge. I know that's not what it's called. Christmas. Christmas. Oh my God, my brain is like blank. Blank brain. Puppy woke me up 3 hours ago. Time here is almost 5 in the morning. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. Defending your life. Thank you, Element. Oh yeah. Good morning to you, Swedish mom. 7 hours ahead. Damn. 5 in the morning in Sweden right now. That's crazy. But that's kind of cool. Christmas tale. Thank you again, Element. Hey, Dubco. Time to make waffles. Let's see. What happened to the famous novelist Ernest Hemingway is an example of the typical brief or initial near death experience. During World War I, Hemingway was wounded by shrapnel while fighting on the banks of the river Piave near Fasolata, Italy. He convalesced in Milan. In a letter from there to his family, he made this cryptic statement: dying is a very simple thing to do. I've looked at death, and really I know. Years later, Hemingway explained to a friend that what had occurred on the fateful night in 1918. A big Austrian trench mortar bomb of the type that used to be called ash cans exploded in the darkness. I died then. I felt my soul or something come right out of my body, like you'd pull a silk handkerchief out of a pocket of one corner. It flew around and then came back and went in again, and I wasn't dead anymore. Hemingway remained deeply affected by this out of body initial near death experience throughout his life and was never again as hard boiled as he once had been. A Farewell to Arms contains a passage where the character Frederick Henry undergoes the same confrontation with death that Hemingway did. I ate the end of my piece of cheese and took a swallow of wine. Through the other noise, I heard a cough. Then came cha 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 cha. There was a flash, and when a blast furnace door is swung open and a roar that started white and went red, and on in a rushing wind. I tried to breathe out, my breath would not come, and I felt myself rush bodily out of myself and out and out and out, and all the time bodily in the wind. I went out swiftly, all of myself, and I knew I was dead, and it had all been a mistake to think you just died. Then I floated, and instead of going on, I felt myself slide back. I breathed, and I was back. So that was an excerpt of that Hemingway wrote. That's why it was worded that way. That's crazy. I didn't know that that's what that was about. Did anybody else know that? I'm going to go to bed after this short walk with my puppy. Not bedtime yet, Swedish mom. Yeah, Christmas Carol. Yes, thank you. That's what it was called. Um, let's see. How many? 17? That one's really long. It's like 3 pages long. We're gonna skip that one just because it's so long. Um, this one is from Jean from Ohio. May seem like another rendering of an initial near-death experience to you. Elements are few and it's brief as are others I wrote about, but it is different, unpleasant. My experience happened during the birth of my first child. For many years, I blamed it on the anesthetic. I had 3 more children without pain because I believed that if there wasn't any pain, I wouldn't have to have anesthetics that caused an experience like this. Living proof of mind over matter, right? What happened was this: everything was bright yellow. There was a tiny black dot in the center of all the yellow, and somehow I knew that the dot was me. The dot began to divide. First, there was 2, then 4, then 8. After there had been enough division, the dots formed into a pinwheel and began to spin. And as the pinwheel spun, the dots began to rejoin in the same manner as they had divided, and I knew that that's when they were all one again. I would be dead. So I began to fight. The next thing I remember is the doctor trying to awaken me and keep me on the delivery table because I was getting up. When my daughter was born, her head was flattened from her forehead to a point and back. They told me that she had lodged against my pelvic bone, but the doctor had already delivered two others that night and was in a hurry to get home. He took her with forceps. I've often wondered if my experience was actually hers instead. Although distressing to her, this woman had to say this about her experience. I survived. I survived and became very strong. Do you want to go see if she needs help? Maybe not. Never mind. Sorry. I survived and became very strong. Before it happened, I was a very weak person who had depended on others all my life. It constantly amazed me that people talk about how much they admire my strength. I developed a lot of character having lived this life and raising four children alone. I can't concentrate. I can honestly say that I like and respect myself now. I didn't when the near death experience happened. I believe maybe it was sent to me to show me that I could be strong, and I certainly needed that strength in the years that came after. Can you go maybe shut her door? Hmm. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, the boy is fine now. He's 6 weeks too early. Okay. I lost my 16-year-old kitty. Oh. Yeah, my daughter's cat here because she lives in hospital, neonatal, with her 3-month-old baby now. I lost one of my kitties a year ago this month. Oh. Yeah, this is the month where we lost Gooey in June last year. We had two identical. They're white and brindle boxers, which most people ask if they're pit, but they both have one blue eye and one brown eye, but in reverse. And so, they were kind of like their own conversation starter. So she had like lumps on her, and we took her, and they took them out, and they said the cancer was so aggressive, there was nothing we could really do, and it was awful. I'm not gonna get into much more of it, but I won't put a dog through that again. I won't put a dog through surgery only to have them not even make it. It's awful. Oh, now we're all depressed. Gave me a free super chat. Oh, thanks, Smoky Mountain Reeds. Smoky Mountain Reeds, thank you. Shout out to you. All right. All right, let's see. Some of these near death experiences are super duper long. So I'm gonna make everyone fall asleep if I read some of them because they're that long. So I'm gonna pick a couple more here because they're really long, but this would be a really good research to do in a less expanded way because some of them are so clinical that they go on and on and on and on. This is a case of a haunting. Next is a case of a haunting and of an experiencer assaulted by entities awaiting her arrival in the tunnel. But there is more to the story of Sandra from Virginia that first glance reveals proof that one cannot judge a near death scenario solely by its description. You must investigate before and after conditions in the person's life to reach any kind of meaningful context within which to consider the experience. I had a stomach stapling in 1980 and in the process had to have a deformed spleen removed. I hemorrhaged on the operating table, and the doctor said that at 3 times he thought he was going to lose me. The first day after surgery, I had to have transfusions. During one of the transfusions, I started feeling really weird. I felt like if I shut my eyes, I would never open them again. I called a nurse. Of course, she said it was all in my head. Our windows are open, so you could probably hear that traffic drive by. Sorry about that. The nurse said it was all in my head and left the room. Great nurse. I remember she just walked out the door and I started being pulled through a tunnel. It was a terrible experience because all I could see were people from my past, people who were already dead, who had done or said something to me that had hurt me in one way or another. They were laughing and screaming until I thought I could not stand it. I begged and begged that be allowed to go back. I could see a light at the end of the tunnel, but I never really got close to it. All of a sudden, I was back in my bed, just thankful I had not died. But as it turns out, she has had several near-death experiences scattered over her long life. My mother told me that when she found out she was pregnant with me, she prayed that I would die. They were just coming out of the depression and they already had a baby and could not afford another. When I was born with a hair lip. Mother thought that that was her punishment for wanting me dead. Within several days and without any surgery, my hair lip healed itself. And to this day, I do not carry a scar. She also told me that when I was only a few weeks old, she came to my bassinet and found me not breathing. I had already turned purple. She grabbed me, shook me, and blew in my face until I started breathing again. I don't remember this experience, but I do remember being in a bassinet that had no liner. I remember studying my hands and what my hands looked like as an infant. My mother said I couldn't possibly remember this, but I did, and I was right. Until the age of 4, she survived numerous nearly fatal car accidents that caused cessation of breath. Her memory of each is detailed and verified by relatives, even though several occurred when she was only a toddler. Right from her earliest years, she displayed the typical after effects of the near death phenomenon, including stunningly accurate psychic abilities, extended perceptual range, and heightened faculties. Like Hipple, she had been visited by the dead advised of pending deaths and has known the exact moment that individuals would die. Ooh. There's another one that says, since pleasant and or heaven-like scenarios constitute the vast bulk of reported cases, it is no wonder that the basic storyline has become virtually mythologized in the last 2 decades. What was that? We just heard like a rumbling, not like thunder. What was that? There was like a weird noise outside in our backyard or next door. It sounded weird. Okay, now it sounds like a car. Anyway, sorry about that. Okay. So just as there is more to the hellish version than meets the eye, so too there are more tales of heaven than are generally acknowledged. Our investigation begins with what happened in the spring of 1987. Oh, wait a minute. Let me stop myself. Yep, I'm going to stop myself because that one's one of those ones that's 4 to 5 pages long that will consume the live stream. Let's see if I can find one more here that's relatively short because these are quite long and I really can't. Um, let's huh? Everyone's heard enough of death anyway? Who said that? Oh. Oh, yeah. Alright. Most of the stories sound like they were trying to explain it with science. Yeah, because people want proof. People want proof of it not happening, and people want proof of it happening because, you know, let's say it happened to you and everyone's like, "That didn't happen to you." Wouldn't you be slightly too severely pissed off that people are just assuming that what you experienced and you know to be true with your mind, everyone's telling you you're wrong. And there's multitudes of people backing you up with their own experiences. How beyond frustrating would that be, you know? That's crazy. That would be super frustrating. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on. We're going to thank Glenn. My God. Why did I say Glenn? We're gonna thank Element for his request. And Arthur Valdez requested scary nighttime drive stories, even though I don't see Arthur in the um, live stream. I'm going to read the request anyways. Not everybody can make it though. Like I've tried to do it at different times to make sure that everybody can be covered somehow, but I noticed that most of the UK people can't make it. I mean, it's what are they, 5 hours ahead? So it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. Is that 5 hours ahead? I never do that. I never know if I'm doing the math right. I don't know. It's either really early in the morning or really, really early in the morning there. Check the chat again, but we're gonna do middle of the night stories. Khalees, hello, Pshaw, I'm a witch, don't get all the time. You're a skinwalker in your backyard. Listen to me. So I did skinwalker stories like was it 3 summers ago? 2 summers ago. And I swear that ever since I did that, I heard and saw things. What's going on? I heard and saw things around our house. Our dogs started barking at stuff in the middle of the night. And this happened like 3 nights in a row. It was just like weird. It was like something was around our house and that I couldn't explain it. It didn't make any sense at all. It wasn't pleasant. Yeah. So we're going to read Creepy Driving at Night Stories, requested by Arthur Valdez. And again, if you're just joining me, we're reading requests that I put in the community tab. So if you guys want to get your requests in next time, you want a next time? If you want to get your request in next time, make sure you check the community tab on YouTube or follow me on Twitter because I check all those. So let's see here. Anybody have anything to contribute? Skinwalkers are nothing to mess with. Yep. Even just talking about them, like, that's how superstitious I am. I shouldn't have even mentioned it. We're gonna move on. Not gonna talk about it. Just like a Skywalker. This one, the first one's titled The Trap. I had pulled over one night to fuss at my 2 young children. A car pulled up beside me and told me that there had been a wreck over the next hill and traffic was stopped. They suggested that I take a side road that detours the wreck. I thanked them and they left. I decided not to take that road because I'm from the country and didn't want to get lost. As I drove by the detour road, I looked over and saw the couple had stopped and had gotten out of their car. There was nothing but woods all around. It was just getting dark and that's all I could see. The next morning, as I drove by the same road, I saw the dead end sign just past where the couple had gotten out of their car. Still gives me chills when I drive past it now, and it's been 15 years since it happened. Yeah. Not everyone has your best interest at heart when you're out there, you know? But you guys know that. Skywalker. Slywalker. Oh. All right. This one's called Black Cat. I was driving home from my ex boyfriend's house at around 3 a.m. And as I was going down the street, I saw what looked like a huge black cat, something the size of a small horse. As I looked at it, it turned toward me and it had a human face. I freaked out, almost ran off the road. When I looked back, it was gone. This one is Ghost Crash. My daughter my daughter were driving. My daughter was driving from Wichita Falls, Texas to Oklahoma City on I-44 to catch our plane home. It must have been they were driving home. To catch our plane home to Pennsylvania, PA, right? That's Pennsylvania. It was 4:05 a.m. and I remember because I was afraid we'd miss our flight and the highway was empty. We were almost out of Lawton city limits when we saw an older model car, light blue or silver, launch off an embankment, roll 3 or 4 times, end over end. And I could actually see a human fly through the air. I pulled over, called 911, gave him the GPS coordinates of the overpass. I asked the dispatch if I should back down the highway, and she told me not to because there was an officer less than 2 minutes away. 20 minutes later, I get a call from the police asking exactly where it was. I repeated the info. The officer said that he was sitting at that location and there was nothing there. Not a skid mark, broken glass, or flattened grass. Nothing at all. When I got home, I Googled it. This is what I found out. That exactly 10 years prior, a group of teenagers were speeding down a suburban road when they lost control, flipped over a guide rail, and rolled down the embankment, and all 6 kids were killed. And they were driving a 1986 Oldsmobile. The time of the accident was 4:05 a.m. Ooh. Dun dun dun. Paranormal road trip. Grab a bat so you can beat whatever's making the thump gling. There should be you know how there's like kickboxing class? There should be like, well, that's what batting cages are for, but they don't really have those anymore. But I think there should be like attack with a bat class. That would be so fun. Wouldn't that be fun? Like they just have like a person shaped dummy and you can just beat the crap out of it for like 30 minutes with a bat. Yeah. That'd be great. I'd pay money to go to that class. We have bats. No, I got my own. Thank you. All right. This one's titled Wake Up. These aren't very long. So, driving home from work one night, exhausted after working a double shift, I was on the freeway and fell asleep behind the wheel. And I heard a woman's voice very gently whisper in my ear, "Wake up." Just loud enough to wake me up, but not startle me awake. Woke up just in time to avoid colliding with a bunch of road construction barrels. And that was 20 years ago, and I never forgot that voice. Yeah, that's insane. That's crazy. This one's called Hitchhiker. Hated driving by a graveyard at night on the way home because a male ghost would hop in and sit in the back seat behind me. He looked solid too, and I could see him in the rearview mirror. Never told anyone until my nephew told me he hated driving past that graveyard because the ghost of a man would hop in his car for a ride. He would tell him, "If you ain't Jesus, get the hell out of my car." I guess that redefines Jesus take the wheel. No, man. No, baby. He's a passenger sometimes. He just laughs at everyone as he has. It happened to me, but my name was Saeed. If you could visit any haunted location, where would it be? Just one? God, that'd be a tough one. Big JB21. If there's anybody here that I haven't said hello to, I'm sorry about that. We're reading requests, and from time to time, especially this summer, because I'm got another project that I'm working on for our personal lives. So I'm swamped. But I'll be taking requests in the community tab. So always check that if you want to get your requests in for the live streams, because we have kind of a good time. I think we have a good time while we're reading this. It's educational and entertaining at the same time. And right now, this program is educational and informative, brought to you by phones, because they're there, they're in our face. And Duncan Hines cakes are moist and delicious. This one's titled Mothman. I drive a delivery route at night in a 30-foot box truck through different towns about 30 miles east of Cleveland. The area is naturally creepy. 2-lane asphalt cut through the forest for miles until you get to the next town. Always foggy as hell. Anyway, one night I'm driving down 322 west toward Chesterland, Ohio, when I see this huge figure flying right at me in the moonlight. It was huge. In case you didn't get that, it was huge. It was big. I realized I was about to hit it with my windshield level and ducked down below the dash. And right as I did, I hear a loud thud at the front of the box right above the cab of the Freightliner I'm driving. I hit the brakes and come to a stop and think for a few seconds before I step out if I should actually get out. But I do it anyway because I had to see what it was. So I get out and walk around to the back of the truck and I see it laying at the side of the road about 50 yards away. And I swear the thing was man sized, but I figure maybe it was a huge hawk or maybe even an eagle that I'd killed. That's what I was going to say because eagles are enormous. So I start walking up to it, thinking it had to be dead. Nope. All of a sudden, the thing rolls over, stands up on two legs, jumps, and flies off. It took a hit at probably 45 miles an hour straight to an aluminum box and it lived. And when it stood up, I swear it was man shaped and it was at least 5'8". Definitely wasn't a bird. And I don't know what else it would have been. When it flew off, I got scared and ran back to the truck and continued the 4 to 5 miles into Chesterland. I stopped at the gas station and get out and look up at the front box where the wing prints were 6 feet across in the dirt and grime. Not like feathery bird shaped, like bat shaped. And if I could describe the looks of it, the closest thing I can come up with is it looked like the monster from Jeepers Creepers or maybe the Mothman. I'm not making any of this up, and it still freaks me out every time I go down that road. And they put it then, true story. I don't know, man. Swear to God. Swear to Jersey Devil, Mothman. You mean the creeper, me on a Friday night? Me on a Friday night. That's funny. Might have to move a little bit out of the way there. I'm thinking this one's titled Ghost Man. So, coming home from a night shift, driving down a back road I'd traveled literally thousands of times. On one side of the road, there's a 6 foot drop onto train tracks. The other side runs vertically up a hillside approximately 25 miles. No guardrails. In my headlights, I saw a young man dressed in a white shirt and dark pants suddenly dart out into the road from the hillside, stop in the middle of the road to look at my truck, and then sprint to the other side down over the embankment. I slammed on my brakes, got out with a flashlight from under my seat, and ran to the trackside thinking he had to be hurt. Nothing. Absolutely quiet except the sound of my truck engine. I got home, which took all of about 5 minutes in my mind since I was shaking so hard. It said something to my dad. He grinned from ear to ear and told me it was probably so and so who was killed out on that road when my dad was in high school. White t shirt and jeans. Was that what he was wearing? Whoever hit him ditched his body on the tracks and left. Sheriff found him the next morning. He does that every once in a while to people driving that road alone at night. Scared the crap out of you, didn't he? I snickered and nodded. They made light out of that like it was nothing, like it was no big deal. But I guess if you've experienced it enough times, it was a real life cat man. Um, no, we're not to those yet. We're not to that yet. We're still on the nighttime driving at nighttime stories, and this isn't numbered, so I have no idea what number we're on. I'm thinking we're somewhere in the middle though. This one's titled Spook Road. As a teenager, I was obsessed with Spook Road, where a car full of kids crashed and died. They still had the dash of the car, still at the site. The road's fairly long, and we were driving at night about 30 miles per hour, and somehow we took a 15-minute drive and was capable of listening to an entire album. It was weird as though time didn't move right. Still baffled at 32. Mm. This one, another short one, says People in the Woods. I was driving very slowly down a supposedly haunted road where you're supposed to turn your lights on and off under the bridge, and you may see the girl hanging that hung herself there. And when I went to do this, a bunch of random people came out of the woods and started banging on my car. Yeah, because things like that are set up for that. So be careful of what stuff you go to try and do by yourself. I think there's a lot of places like that. There's all kinds of like and several in many states there's all kinds of like, especially even in Michigan, there's like the bridges and haunted lighthouses, and So I think that when there's a scenario where you're, like, in the woods in the middle by yourself and, "Oh, if you go there at night, da, da, da." Yeah, if you go there at night, there's probably some people waiting to, like, you know, take advantage of that too. Kinda crazy. Run their asses over. Yeah, no shit. I think that when you're surrounded and you weren't expecting it, I think it might mess with your mind a little bit, though. This one's titled "Go Back in Your Car and Go." So a few years ago, I was leaving my boyfriend's house late at night. I had to stop to get gas before the drive home, so I pulled into the first open gas station I saw. I started walking into the store when out of nowhere a man runs up on me and yells, "Get back in your car and go." Something in his panicked expression told me he wasn't messing around and I got the hell out of there fast. The next day, we found out the gas station was robbed and the attendant was badly hurt. I had to call the PD to tell them about the guy, and to this day, I don't know if he was the Good Samaritan or the robber. Why would the robber do that? Maybe he was just so freaked out because he shot somebody or hurt somebody. This one's titled Fog. I was driving home from work at about 2 a.m. It was a beautiful night, so I decided to take a route home that was more in the country instead of through town. I had to cross an old bridge that had been there probably 80 to 100 years. There's no houses or lights except my headlights. And just as my front tires hit the bridge, a red fog rolls in across it. The hair stood on the back of my neck. Bye. Bye. The hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I got across that bridge as fast as possible. After I got across, I looked in my mirror, and the fog is gone, but it looked like someone was standing in the middle of the bridge. I mentioned it to my parents and the next morning, and my dad said he'd always heard stories about that bridge, and supposedly a young lady hung herself from it. Well, that's kind of odd that those two stories are pretty similar. This one's titled Werewolf. Used to work in Sanibel Island in Florida. Was driving across the causeway on my way home from work around midnight. Went to accelerate because I was over the bridge and a huge dog like creature walked in front of my car. It looked ragged. It was as tall as the hood of my car, furry, with fang like teeth hanging out of the sides of its mouth. It looked at me like I was in the way, then kind of sauntered off toward the beach. Scared the hell out of me. The next one's titled Aliens. My mom and I had a light following us for 20 miles, not a helicopter or plane. It would move from side to side and then front to back. The radio went out and then it was gone. That's weird. The man in the middle of nowhere had to pee really bad about midnight, pulled off onto a dirt road and BFE, turned headlights off, did my business, got back in the car, turned the headlights, and saw a man about 20 feet in front of the car walking toward me. Kind of shook me up a bit, backed up, and got the hell out of there. That's, I mean, he could have been there the whole time. He didn't notice, but it's kind of creepy that, yikes. Struck by lightning. I was driving home from work in a torrential downpour, merely 5 miles from home, and I felt a tingling sensation on the back of my neck, and the hair on my head started to rise. Realizing static charging, I braced myself for the inevitable. Lightning struck my car with an intense, blinding light and causing an instantaneous ringing in my ears. The dim lights on my dash glowed brighter than a spotlight due to the sudden electrical surge. The radio shorted out and blew out the actuators in the rear windows, causing the windows to retreat into the doors. And by the time I got home and pulled into the garage, there was 3 inches of standing water in my back seat. Car ran fine after. Tires did a great job grounding it. That's crazy. Are you falling asleep over there? No. Followed. Let me see. Let me check the chat. I haven't checked the chat in a minute. Could be chaos there. How long is the stream? Long. It's long. I think I'm only like at the third request. My husband's not going to make it. I don't think so. We had an easy day at work. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Werewolves are only angry because they aren't cute enough for belly runs. You mean belly rubs? Maybe you did mean belly runs. I don't know. I would give an ugly werewolf a belly rub. Ugly creatures need love too. Used to be an old asylum that was torn down in the late 90s on the side of Michigan that you wouldn't want to get out of the car after hearing a hit on it. Hmm. Let's see here. Followed. There's only a couple of sentences long. A truck on a dark road with no lights following me. I had just left work at 3 in the morning. I was the only car on the road, and all I could think of was the movie Jeepers Creepers. I mean, anytime, paranormal creature or not, that's scary. This one's titled, I think this is the last one of this set of stories, The People at the Cemetery. I live in a small town in South Texas. When I was 19, a boyfriend of mine, myself, and two other friends were driving down an old back road toward a cemetery that hadn't been used since the 1800s. It was about 3 a.m. We pulled up into the cemetery only to see off in the distance 4 white hooded figures circling a grave in the distance. We didn't stay long enough to investigate. We turned around and left real quick. I mean, what if they were doing a sacrifice? Always check it out. Always investigate. Isn't that from Discovery Crime? We like that channel in this house. Tank Kelly, you requested scary vacation stories. Yours is up next. On deck, Evan the Nerd's story that he wanted me to read this evening contributed. But right now we are going to do Tank Kelly's request of scary vacation stories. So as always, scary is in the ear of the beholder. So we'll see. It's from BuzzFeed. So how long to get to my requests? Well, let's see. Where am I here? I've done Glings 1, Arthur Valdez, Element, Tank, year number 4 of 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm on 4 of 8 in year 7. So it'll be a few minutes. Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna make it, man. But I don't know if those are funny anyway. They're bad, but you missed when I was talking about the guy that lives in our town. So if you listen back in the beginning, you'll hear about how I was talking about the guy in town that's on a perpetual bad acid trip like his entire life. But yeah. Oh no. I don't know what is it feels like the energy in my house is off today. There's like chaos all around that's not normally happening. So it's weird. You ever have that happen in your house and you know what I mean? But it's like no matter what, it's just like seems like there's like several weird things happening at the same time. Um there's 17 of these. They're not long, but let's see. This one's called The Plain Poo Problem. My brother had just turned 1 when we went to Disney World for the first time. I was 10. I was sitting on the plane beside my mom. My brother started screaming. We thought it was because his ears were popping, but it turned out he had the worst diarrhea everywhere. On the seat, on my mom, on my brother. The flight attendant brought us club soda to fix the problem and a garbage bag and paper towels. Are you doing that? Are you doing this or something? What am I hearing that from then? Okay. They wouldn't let my mom get up because the seatbelt light wasn't off yet. She made holes in the garbage bag and tied it at his waist, sat him on her lap and waited. Worst flight ever. But it's laughable now. I guess so. I'm not laughing. All I'm picturing. What is that? Hmm. The ash scattering cruise. I went on a cruise with my grandma and she tried to scatter my great grandpa's ashes off the back of the boat. I ended up rinsing my grandpa off about 4 levels of the ship with a cup of water. When my great grandma died and we wanted to scatter her ashes in the same way, my grandma hollowed out bread rolls and put the ashes inside to prevent a repeat of the events. That's horrible and funny at the same time. Did you hear that? No, you missed it. I have something I have to do and almost forgot. Oh no, okay. We'll still be reading. The peeing incident on the 4th of July weekend, we got stuck in standstill traffic, and my youngest brother, who was 6 at the time, kept complaining that he had to pee. We couldn't pull over, so my dad gave him a Gatorade bottle to pee into. My brother started peeing in the bottle, and just as traffic started moving a little bit, the sudden movement of the car jolted my brother from where he was standing in a minivan, and he dropped the bottle but didn't stop peeing. He literally peed all over the side of my dad's head and the steering wheel. Well, these aren't scary, but they're pretty funny. Number 4, the gone off milk drama. Once on a family vacation in Disneyland, my brother and I ordered milk for breakfast before heading out for the day. We both took 2 sips and then stopped because it tasted weird. My mom didn't believe us and made us drink all of it because it was $6 a glass. On the drive to Disneyland, I started feeling really sick, but my parents thought it was just car sick and gave me a sick bag. I threw up everywhere. Then my brother did. When we got back to our car in the evening, my brother slid into the back seat and landed in a pile of vomit. Turns out I hadn't quite got all into the bag. My rotten milk puke baked in the sun in our car for 8 hours. Thank God it was a rental because it still smelled like throw up when we returned it 7 days later. Oh my God. The next one's just called The Cow. Cow fell off a cliff in Cornwall and splattered on the beach 100 feet below. My sister was a sensitive soul and in the depths of teen angst hadn't noticed. We never spoke of it for years. Okay, I don't think that was worded correctly, but whatever. Not scary, but great for laughs. Oh yeah, we'll get back to scary in a minute, but $6 for milk? Oh yeah. Apparently, if you haven't been to Disneyland, greatest place on earth. You gotta go to the grocery store while you're there though, so keep some groceries in your room so you don't spend every last living dime that you have while you're there because it's tempting. They've got food places everywhere, and some of them are cheap, some of them are decent. But yeah, you will go broke. Oh yeah. The number 6 is the hotel. My family and I stayed in a hotel, and it's using quotation marks. Can I even call it that? With bats on the ceiling, poop on the walls, and we had to use bath towels for blankets. Oh no, there's no way I would sleep in the car. There's no way I could do it. My husband knows me too well. There's no way we would stay there. Mm-mm. We did sleep in the car when we went to Florida that one time, just because we were so close. Well, it seemed like we were close, but we were still really far away. We should have just gotten a hotel though. Number 7, the whale. My mom's side of the family consists of about 20 Irish people, and we often hire out hostels to ourselves for the Christmas holidays. One year, we stayed by the seaside, and my uncle overheard in the local pub that a dead whale had washed up on the beach and that someone was going to blow it up to get rid of it. I just read about this today. Obviously, we all wanted to see this spectacle. When we finally arrived, there were bits of dead whale everywhere with the worst rotting smell I've ever experienced to this day. My mom decided to kick a piece of whale blubber that was lying around, which exploded and splattered all over me. I was 11, covered head to toe in dead whale, and the smell. I had to throw my trainers and borrowed a what? I had to throw them in the garbage before we left the beach because no one could stand the downwind of the blubber smell. It's a family legend that we like to bring up from time to time. Yeah, that seems like something that would happen to me. Someone Richie never went. What's that mean? Oh, you guys are having your own discussion in the chat. Sometimes everybody starts having their own discussion, then I feel left out. Boo hoo! I'm just kidding. Everyone's making friends in the chat. ASMR. The classic camping fail. This is number 8. We left for our trip before dawn, and after about a 6-hour car journey, arrived at Devon campsite. At a Devon campsite, my mom and dad cracked open a beer each to celebrate being so organized. They got the tent out, started looking for the poles. Cue, I thought you packed them conversation. Luckily, we had a small tent, which my mom and brothers were able to stay the night in, whilst my dad and I made the 460-mile round trip to get the poles. Really? I mean, you couldn't just buy another tent or like rent one? Do campsites have tents you can rent?
Ones I've been to don't.
That's terrible. Just
Yeah,
sleep in the
red
car, dude.
flags is dangerous.
Number 9, the vacation bug. Once on a spring break vacation, my family went to Florida for a week. There were 6 of us, and we all got a stomach bug that caused us to vomit for 24 hours. We all got it, but no one had it at the same time. Someone was sick every day of our vacation. It was disgusting. Number 10 is called the anniversary shitcident. My husband and I went to Austria for our anniversary, which also coincided with the Christmas weekend. Our hotel was nowhere near full capacity, so most of the staff knew who we were. After a late dinner, my husband took the biggest dump known to man, which overflowed the toilet so badly that it ran onto the carpet. We called the concierge, and they sent someone up to give us the key to a new room. While we hid around the corner out of embarrassment, we grabbed the key, found our suite, made ourselves scarce for the rest of the trip. I couldn't even bring myself to check out with that concierge because I know for certain that he knew exactly who destroyed their room. Oh my God, it's not like you pooped all over the room. You just had a massive turd that clogged the toilet.
Something to be proud of. I did that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like a trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got many of those stories, don't you? Mm-hmm. That's, don't hide your head in shame. Walk out with pride. Number 11, the Speedo. In Tuscany, my dad thought it would be a great idea to wear his 20-year-old Speedo to the hotel pool. He also thought it would be a great idea to jump off the diving board to impress his 6-year-old and 9-year-old daughters. Luckily, I turned away just in time to avoid seeing my father's package as his Speedo slipped off his body when he dived into the pool. Unfortunately, my older sister and mother were too slow to notice what was coming for them. We've been laughing about it for years. Wow. Number 12. Let me see who's still with us here. Oh, the numbers have dwindled. We had like 21 in here. Now there's 11. Wah, wah, wah. The broken elevator. My family and I were on vacation in Paris after a long day of walking around. We didn't want to take the stairs back to the 7th floor, so we all squeezed into the tiny elevator. After about one floor, the elevator stopped. We pressed the emergency button, and the poor woman on the other end couldn't understand anything we were saying. My family and I were stuck in there for about an hour. We were finally saved, but we had to crawl out with the chance of being cut in half. The elevator was broken for the rest of our trip, so every day after that, we had to take 7 flights of stairs up to our room. Oh my God. All I'm picturing is the person that always forgets something has to go back up the 7 flights of stairs because you forgot something. My wallet. Mm. The bad plumbing incident. So one time I went to the Virgin Islands with my family and my best friend for 2 weeks. It said for 2 week. We rented a house and one bath and had one bathroom with really bad plumbing. One of us took a poo, clogged the toilet, so we left it in the toilet for about a week, but then it began to stink up the room. Long story short, some bare hands were stuck in a toilet and we lost a fly swatter. What are you doing with a fly swatter? Trying to break up, like cut up the turd? Wouldn't you do that like day one? Why would you wait so long for it to stink really bad and then stick your hand in there and a fly
Yeah,
swatter?
if you let it sit and funk and then you peel the funk, then it's going to really stink.
Blackfire said, "You're sure not going to marry me?" I think my husband would be kind of mad about that. Of course, I think there's days he'd gladly give me away.
Sure, the same for you.
Yeah, I like how you didn't defend yourself and then you said, "I'm sure there's the same for you." He didn't deny it, folks. You were all witness to that. He did not deny it.
Which one do you get?
He asked how much money you had, and then, like, so I guess if you have enough money, he'll trade me for that. Sorry about your luck.
Or Les Paul.
Number 14, the dividend or a Les Paul. He'll trade me for a Les Paul, folks. I don't think that's an insult. Les Pauls are nice. I hate you have the Les Paul. Sell it. The dividing train nightmare. I was interrailing with my friends and fell asleep on one of the night trains in a different carriage to them. Woke up around 5 a.m. with an old man rubbing my bare feet on his crotch. After running away from him and unable to find my friends, I spoke to a conductor who explained to me in broken English that my friends were on end of a train going to Austria, but I had ended up on a part of the train going to Bratislava. I ended up stuck in Bratislava with no shoes, no money, and a dead phone. I had accepted death until a couple took pity on me and helped me get a train back to Austria. It was the worst night of my life. Can you imagine? They wake up, be like some strangers like rubbing his crotch with your bare feet. What happened to her shoes? All I can see is that sort of homeless guy from The Simpsons. Where he's like that guy, that cartoon guy. I have to plug my laptop in before it dies. Sorry, Trix. I didn't do that very gracefully. It's stuck now. Oh, it's already plugged in. All I have to do is plug it into the actual computer. Wow.
Shocking.
Sorry.
Electrician.
I'm a little hostile toward you since you'd offer me up for cash. Sure you are. Psh,
Enough cash in the world to buy
no one can afford me.
it. He was fancy.
What you got? What you got? Number 15, the milk. My dad was trying to carry groceries to our motel room in one go, but when he got to the door, he realized the room key was in his pocket. While shuffling the groceries around trying to reach the key, both gallons of milk slipped out of his hands and exploded everywhere. This was a motel type place where the doors lead outside than into a hallway, and we happened to be on the fourth floor. Luckily, there was a storm drain right there, and all the milk drained out into the parking lot beneath. My dad looked over the railing just in time to see both gallons of milk blanket a minivan parked right below the storm drain. And then the windshield wipers turned on. There were people inside the car. That's funny though. Like, can you imagine all of a sudden there's milk all over your car? That's how often does that happen? Number 16, the bad Mexican food. When my family was in Mexico, we went out for food at a place near the hotel where we were staying at. Now, the way home from the restaurant, I got out of the car 4 times to throw up. Then my brother and sister started throwing up. The food poisoning was so bad that I wasn't even able to swallow medicine or even a sip of water. Oh, wow, that's bad. Ooh, another throw up story. Number 17, the vomiting trip. This is the last of this set of stories. We did a Christmas road trip around Florida with my entire extended family. One of my cousins fell ill the night before we headed to our Fort Lauderdale condo, and at the time we thought he had probably got food poisoning. But we were so wrong. We started dropping like flies. Imagine 15 people in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo shitting and vomiting everywhere. It was like the scene from Bridesmaids where everyone's screaming at each other to get out of the bathroom and dragging our bodies around half naked, just wanting to die. And in the end, we survived. But that was the last vacation we ever took as a family together. Yeah. Well, the family that shits together stays together. Together. I said. Oh, but bum. Good one, honey. All right, Evan, should we read your sad story now that everyone's laughing? Or because it's Evan's turn and it's sad. You're welcome. Let me see here. We've got, speaking of poop, not me.
BRB. I got something to do real quick.
You can tell us in the bathroom. You can tell us from the bathroom. My husband will be joining us via the bathroom in the chat there. He doesn't care. There's nothing to be ashamed. Everyone poops. All right, now going from our happy mindset is Evan's story, so the timing kind of is bad, but this was, let's see here. This is by Evan the Nerd. Somewhere on McAvery Street. Thank you for your submission, Evan. All right, so this one is not hilarious. I'm just warning you. Summer on McAvery Street. It all happened on the afternoon of May 12th, back when the only things you had to worry about were aliens and commies. The children had been lent out for the summer. Everyone was having a good time. The ice cream trucks were running up and down the block. There were little kids running after them. You could hear the jingling of pocket change from McAvery's corner. Not really, but you know what I'm talking about, right? The streets were clogged with boys and girls just recently released from prison, and nobody could get through. So many kids without anything to actually do. They had freedom. They could have kept to their yards and stayed out of people's way. But that wouldn't have worked, right? Nothing ever does. Well, there were so many kids that old McKenna, with his engine sputtering and leaking oil, couldn't see the Harrisons' little girl crossing over. She was rolling her baby stroller. Such a sweet one. I remember the smile on her face. You'd never forget that type of smile, and I doubt I'm going to be an exception. Old McKenna's truck was too high. Old McKenna couldn't see anything from the driver's seat, even though he should have been going slow. McAvery Street is within a school zone. He was going too fast. I was there when it happened. I was sitting on my porch. I heard the thump as the front grill hit her, deep and hollow. Then the sounds stopped. Not those that followed, mind you. He didn't lay off the gas pedal until after the second thump. But those happy sounds, all that laughing and yelling, all those jangling coins, all that joy died in everyone's throats. Everyone went quiet. You'd have heard their shock and their fear. Everyone was afraid, but not for the Harrisons. Nobody knew it was Amma who got struck. They just knew that somebody had. Mothers panicked, grabbing their own children, and I understand why. I'll never have children myself, not worth it, but I can understand why someone would care more about the living than the dead. And don't worry. Even if they had went and checked, they wouldn't have been able to help Amma anyway. She was already dead. The sounds that followed told me as much. I knew well before the autopsy, and before the talk started to spread among the women, that the wheels had crushed her head. I heard it pop, pop, and spill her brains. I also heard the screams. Marge had finally found her voice, and she was screaming and rushing into the splitting crowd of crying kids. I saw her hair flapping in the air. She'd just begun dyeing in it, awful sandy brown color, the color of kitty litter after it had been pissed in. I'd recognize that color anywhere. And I'll recognize that scream. We all will. This year and years yet to come. Man, woman, and child. We will all recognize the scream that cut through the joy of summer. The scream that shattered summer. Thank you, Evan, for that submission. Oh, yeah. I always thank you, Evan, for that. I always ask my husband to read one, but he's always like, no, I'm not going to read one. He's not a fan of reading out loud. And I don't know if you've ever tried to, um, let's say, have any of you ever, and you'll notice that I still screw up here, but have you ever tried to record yourself reading, let's say, instructions to anything? It's not usually longer than a paragraph. If you can see how you could get through that and then see how long that is, it's like, what, maybe 10 seconds? Then you can imagine trying to record something that's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes long, of how difficult that can become. And then people get inside of their head and realize that someone else is going to hear them reading it. So yeah, it can be kind of a nightmare. But my husband's done a few voices for some of my stories. What was one? Oh, you did one of the comedy ones when we did emails from an asshole, and then
Tornado one.
oh, the tornado one.
Yeah. Something with the tornadoes.
Hmm. I don't know. I hated hearing my own voice before too, but, one thing, you just have to, if something you wanna do. Nope, I'm getting at to it right now. So, Xena, you wanted Behind Folklore, and your grandson wanted Isaiah wanted, Midnight Man. Well, this is kind of 2 in 1 because the Midnight Man is supposed to be a product when you play the Midnight Game, and the Midnight Game was something that I had recorded years ago. So, I don't know if you've heard it or not. I think it was my first, like, Oktober fest on YouTube, but, so there's that, but then there's, I found someone who has an experience with the Midnight Man, and they claim it is not fiction. So, I'm Australian, so my accent sounds seep, cray, oh, cray.
Yeah.
I wish I love Australian, like, that's something I don't think I could imitate. Sometimes I think I can, but it's like a lot of it's Australians have, like, you don't know that they're Australian, then all of a sudden, bang, wanga, banga. They throw something in there and you're like, "Oh, shit, that's not even that's not even English, but it's cool." Okay, so Isaiah requested Midnight Man, and this is someone who, bloody hell. Every Aussie accent is automatically good. I know. Let's see. This is someone's experience with the Midnight Man, and they claim it is not fiction. So we're just gonna go through it and see what you guys think. December 23rd, 2013. Me and my cousin were at home alone. My parents and siblings had left for Maryland early in the day to visit our grandparents for Christmas. The plan was for us to join them on Christmas Eve. I had a dog sit, and my cousin was keeping me company. They had left at roughly 2 p.m., and by night we were completely bored. We started watching some horror movies and had gotten into the horror movie mood, not scared, but excited. Hard to explain the feeling. Excited to be scared? So a quick Google search led us to this amazingly simple game. We had everything we needed already at home and we could do it. And this was something neither of us believed would work, even the tiniest little bit. And our plan was to disprove it for science. Smart, right? Let me describe my house real quick. Pretty average 2-story house, 4 bedroom, 2 bath, large basement, living room. 11 p.m. This is to me when our night started. We started to assemble everything we needed in the kitchen: 2 large candles, 2 note cards, a sewing needle, 2 lighters, 2 baggies of salt, and a silver cross on a chain, which was hung on my sister's door to keep whatever we summoned out if it worked. When we finished collecting all of this, we were getting pretty excited and were definitely no longer bored. 11:58, after writing down our names, both me and Tom pricked our fingers and put a dot of blood on our pieces of paper and stepped outside with all of our supplies. We placed our bloodied names on the doorstep and waited for midnight. And at 11:59, we knocked on our own door 22 times. 12. We walked into my house, lit our candles, and commenced the game. It was pretty simple for a while, walking around pretending we could feel cold spots and basically playing the paranormal investigator. We played this for about an hour before we got bored. I decided I was done playing this dumb game and sat down on the couch with my candle and talked to Tom, who was feeling pretty much the same as I was about the game. We managed to talk for maybe 5 minutes. I was looking at Tom and he was looking around. He stopped talking in mid sentence, his eyes fixed on something. Without saying a word, I looked over to see what he saw. In that doorway was a very black outline, darker than pitch black, blacker than the blackness of the house outline in the darkness. This thing was standing in the doorway to the kitchen leading to the living room. It was almost human, but so much worse. His head was touching the top of the doorway and its shoulders were touching the sides. This thing's arms were down near where my knees would be if I stood in that doorway. This thing's eyes were the darkest part. It looks like the darkness condensed so far that it created a hole in the world, and it looked right at us. The only reason I know that this thing was not a figment of my imagination was that when I started describing it, Tom finished the description. We ran into my room, which had felt the safest the entire night. We didn't shut the door, which was against the rules. If you close the door, it would know exactly where you were. So we saw this thing pass the door and go down the hallway. As it did this, the draft created blew out my candle. A draft is too kind a word about this wind. I couldn't get it too light. I finally lit my candle at the 10-second count, which is part of the game if you read about the midnight game. Tom was freaking out about it, and I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading it. I was desperately praying I didn't need to draw a salt circle. If I did, Tom would have to venture out alone, and I would be left sitting on my own in a circle of salt in the pitch black with no candle and darkness for company. And at this point, we decided we needed to go downstairs and stay there. 2:30 a.m. We walked quickly but silently down the stairs and huddled in the basement corner near the fireplace. I do not know how we managed it, but we somehow managed to create what I can only describe as a bubble of positive energy. During this time, we talked about everything we could that would keep the good energy. This was by far the hardest thing I have done. How hard it is to think of good things, you might ask, while the entire time we were downstairs, footprints were stomping up and down the stairs, all through the kitchen and the hallway above us, and every once in a while we would see a face looking at us from the stairs. So I would say it was pretty damn hard to keep that shield up. We sat down there for a while, what felt like years. The clock on the wall seemed to move way slower than it should have. And when 3:33 finally came around, the worst part was that my phone suddenly turned on at full volume. I take this as that thing saying goodbye in its own way. We immediately left and booked it out of there and just got in the car and drove till daylight, neither of us able to believe what had just happened. Well, summary is what I took away from this is don't fucking mess around with the paranormal. Those boards to communicate with spirits or flipping voodoo will screw you over. This thing seemed to feed on negative energy, and unless you have experienced something like this, I don't know if you can understand how much of it seems to be in your head. We would only do this again to prove we're not crazy and with someone else to prove it. I apologize if my writing sucks. Please write in the comments if you've done this game or are planning on it. Well, number one, you know what I'm going to say about that. Are you a paranormal expert? No, so don't fuck with stuff you don't know what you're doing. Aw, bye cats. Um, yeah. Anyways, there's a midnight game that people can play supposedly, and it'll summon the Midnight Man. So I know there's a whole there's a movie on it now, right? But obviously you don't want to do that. Oh, now guess what we're at? Is Smoky Mountain still here? Because now we're finally to the bad trip stories. Down. Are you hanging in there over there? Are you? Okay. Let's see how these are. Kind of weird. When I glanced over, these ones were kind of not funny. That's for sure. Because they're not supposed to promote drug use. And they definitely don't. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Were you ever in a haunted house? Hell yeah. Yeah. Do you know what the funny thing is when you're a kid and I say you don't play with this stuff because when I was really, like 9 or 10, we used to do stuff like that all the time. That's how I know you don't mess with it. It's probably why my life was such a fucking mess. It probably contributed to it a little bit. I'm the midnight man. I'll clear out your fridge at midnight. Mm, I'm so hungry. I cannot eat until what 9 a.m. tomorrow. That sucks. Oh, bye, Swedish mom. Thanks for hanging in there. We are going to go. Smoky Mountain Reads requested bad trip stories, like bad drugs, and these are 5 bad acid trip stories. So, let's see. Let's get through this first one and see what you guys think about this. So, Jack hallucinated bugs and snakes. Jack took his final acid trip at 20. which he described as the only one in which I lost the ability to know the difference between what was real and what was induced hallucination. He ingested 125 micrograms of LSD, which took effect while he was walking on the beach with a friend, Bill, who was not intoxicated, which I think would be funny if you were the one. The way he described what happened went like this. So all of a sudden, I was transported to Never Never Land, a deep, dark place where everybody was a bug with insect faces, antennae coming out of their heads, and all this dripping and masticating going on with their mouths. Snakeheads were bobbing around every corner. As the visual distortions continued, I started raving, going nuts. I was gone. It was about 3 hours of grisly horror. I was so distracted by the ghastliness of it all that I didn't have time to notice how scared I was. I was I thought this metamorphosis. Okay, that doesn't make sense. This transformed world was real. I was screaming and yelling and jumping around while Bill tried to maintain me. I would like to hear Bill's side of the story. The bug and snake hallucination continued on the drive home, and Mark kept trying to jump out of the car, so Bill had to tie him down. The drive was one of the most gruesome experiences I can ever remember. I was out of my mind, horrified by these hideous visions I kept seeing. It was really miserable. After he came down from the drug, Jack's eyes were damaged from the sun for weeks afterwards. The pupils dilate in response to LSD, and he had not worn sunglasses. Jack became socially isolated. He felt like an outsider and discontent, unable to even have a sense of belonging with his previous subversive companions, and described himself as more inclined to see the dark side of humanity. Now, I didn't belong to anything. I stepped away from my family and lost a lot of friends. I went off into the abyss because I was disconnected on the road to nowhere, and I never took LSD again. And while the consequences of Jack's bad trip were temporary, he was impacted by it for a long time afterward. Others are lucky enough to come down and feel much the same as they did before they had the bad trip. So, um, yeah. You imagine tying your friend down because everyone's an insect. I know I probably shouldn't laugh at that, but it sounds hilarious. If you're just joining us, we are reading 5 Bad Acid Trips. The number 7 of the 8 requests I received in the community tab. Number 2 is Mark's behavior got him hospitalized. At age 17, oh my God, Mark took 5,000. Okay, keep in mind the last guy took 125 micrograms. This guy took 5,000 micrograms of LSD with 4 friends. As the acid took effect, Mark felt alienated from his companions, although later he reflected that maybe the hostility was all in his head. You think? Feeling increasing paranoia, he went off into town on his own. Oh my God. I'm just picturing this. As the intoxication effects intensified, it looked as if the streets were melting and churning, and people looked like comic book characters. A field looked like a Van Gogh painting. Everything in my field of vision looked slabbed on, like one of his paintings. Mark stopped by the home of a family he knew in search of sanctuary and requested a shower, but he then felt unable to control. Mark's parents arrived, but his behavior felt out of control. He ran out of the house thinking he could fly, although he was briefly sobered by the experience of stubbing his toe. He returned to the house, but then the whirlwind began again, and he began racing around the house, being chased by their Saint Bernard. In an effort to control so funny. I can tell that someone wrote this to deter people from using drugs, but it's so funny. Because I'm picturing just watching this happen. Oh my God. In an effort to control Mark's behavior, his companions put him in a small room, which only antagonized him further, and he threw a chair through the window and escaped.
Get out, man.
Candy bars. On his way home, he felt an impulse to be free and unencumbered, so he stripped off his clothes. An ambulance was called and he was tied to a stretcher and taken to a hospital where he was given an injection of antipsychotic medication, kept under observation for 10 days, and charged with indecent exposure. Mark's experience was unusual in that his behavior was dramatic and he was taken to a hospital. Most people who find clothing and being inside constricting do not lose control over their behavior to this extent. However, he did take a very high dose of the drug, many times as much as Jack in the previous story. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I don't know if you guys are enjoying this or not, but my someone just said, Big JB21 said, "My boy about to enter the 12th dimension." Like, what was he thinking? I'm just gonna take off and go into town by myself. I don't think anyone should take that, but if you're going to, why don't you just handcuff yourself to
Oh, down
something?
by the quad.
We're going streaking.
KFC still open?
It's so cold, Frank. Sleep deprived people definitely see some trippy shit. I used to do drugs, meth. I was up for 5 days straight. I bet you did. You saw all kinds of crazy shit. You know, one thing you didn't see was the inside of your fucking eyelids because you didn't go to sleep for 5 days. Oh my god, I'm so glad you don't do that anymore, Element. But these stories are funny. Okay, I'm sorry. Number 3. If this one's not funny, and I'm gonna start laughing anyway because now I'm just like in that mood where everything's funny. Number 3. Wayne Anthony's girlfriend became destructive and violent. That should be funny. But it's,
She's one sentence away from laughter for 15 minutes.
I'm so sorry. I'm now delusional. Oh no. Oh god, so funny. That's not
She has
funny.
some bad red rump licorice.
I haven't eaten anything since dinner, which I had at what, 5? So if you guys are into intermittent fasting, then you'll relate. But anyways, number 3, Wayne Anthony's girlfriend became destructive and violent. I can't get through that without laughing anyways. 'Cause I feel like it's still gonna be funny. A little bit. Anyway, he described a horrific turn of events when he and his girlfriend dropped acid and she had a bad trip from the start. This was also a bad trip for Wayne because he had to cope with trying to subdue her aggressive behavior and getting her professional help while he was under the influence himself. As a musician, Wayne's girlfriend owned a lot of recording equipment, which she smashed to pieces while under the influence of LSD. Stripping herself naked, she proceeded to cut herself with a broken shard of plastic and became violent toward Wayne and others who attempted to dress and help her. I don't want any clothes on. Wayne called an ambulance and he and the paramedics struggled to get her into the ambulance and she was so physically aggressive. While in the hospital, she assaulted a nurse and took many people to hold her down so she could be forcibly injected with a sedative. She was given the maximum dose of sedating medication to calm her down. After coming down from the drug, she was horrified at what she had done, assaulting herself and others and destroying her own equipment. Clearly, she was in a very altered state of mind from the drug. What do people think's going to happen when you take acid?
That you're gonna forget about life for a while or something.
Right, but I mean,
But there's a certain level where you gotta stop.
yeah.
You
Like,
know,
I'm all for, do what you want.
take
But
the amount to
but
where
but everyone knows you don't smoke a pile of weed in front of you, just a little bit, man.
you gotta stop the level where you start taking your pants off. That's when all the trouble happens.
That's when the whores come in. Oh my gosh. I thought that was gonna be funny and then it wasn't, but I couldn't stop from laughing anyway. My meds are bad enough. Nobody needs drugs, but we have fun on drugs. You do not need drugs. No kidding. All right. Like I said, what an idiot. Okay. No, no. All right. We don't judge people here. We're just going to read stories. Number 4. Boy George lost control of his bodily functions. Culture Club frontman Boy George described a bad trip in his autobiography, Take It Like a Man. Although he had used other drugs in the past, including weed and heroin, it was the first time he'd taken acid. Compared to the other drugs he had taken, which take effect in seconds or minutes, there was a long delay between taking LSD and the drug taking effect. It can often take up to an hour for it to start after swallowing the acid tab. So George got bored waiting after taking the first tab, took a second dose. So when the drug finally took effect, the trip was very intense. George and his friends headed to a club, and after going through the feelings of paranoia about the police presence outside the club and upsetting another celebrity, George began to feel that he had lost control of his body. The visual hallucinations made it feel like everything was breathing and coming at me. I started shrinking and feeling scared. We had to leave. He then upset most of his companions, who left him alone with his celebrity pal, Marilyn. By then, George had lost control of his bodily functions. I was tripping so bad I couldn't get myself to the toilet. Marilyn led me to the loo in hysterics and left me staring at the bowl. I caught my melting face in the mirror and started to freak out. I can't go. I can't. And then I pissed myself. People can also find themselves questioning social norms, which can seem pointless and meaningless, hence the occasional removal of clothing described in other stories. This is not what usually happens on acid, as people on acid will usually try to follow the normal social rules, but it can occur if the person is very intoxicated. This next one's kind of sad, though.
So, if Boy George goes to a club, is it a bullshit club? Thank you.
Did you think of that like the first sentence that I read and we're waiting?
Said club, I
Okay.
I had it right up here.
My ass is numb from this chair that I'm sitting in. I don't know why I always sit in this chair, but I figured it would be like the best spot for noise, and I was so wrong. Dr. Frank Olson took his own life on acid. He was a special officer and a biochemist, consumed a drink spiked with LSD. So he didn't purposely take it, which I believe that was like a big problem in like 60s and 70s, where people would just drop it in people's, and people will still do that to you, but it'll be something else now. But anyways, a first-hand account of what he experienced during this trip is not available, but he was reported to have suffered from a psychosis as a result. Days later, he took his own life by throwing himself out of a 10th floor window of the Statler Hotel in New York. We will never know what Dr. Olson actually experienced during or after this trip, but the subsequent investigation indicated that he may have had a history of emotional instability. Furthermore, ingesting a drink spiked with a hallucinogenic drug without your knowledge is likely to be much more confusing and frightening than experiencing the effects after intentionally taking the drug through your own choice. Yeah, I would think that that would be much more traumatic, don't you think? Like you had no warning whatsoever to prepare yourself mentally for what's going to happen.
Prepare yourself.
I mean, from what I'm reading, I don't think you can prepare yourself anyway. So don't do drugs, kids. It's bad for you. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life. I would think these stories would make your mind up for you. Just talk to other people that do these things. You'll know what to do. Knew a guy who got high on meth and went running around the woods on it, tube socks and hat, yelling for his girlfriend while holding his junk in his hand. The CIA was bad for drugging people. Oh, yep, that's getting into the whole MK Ultra, and I have on the back burner. So hopefully by September, when life is back to normal, I would really like to do a very in-depth, actually probably series on MK Ultra. But now that I said that, I feel like someone else is going to steal the idea. Mark my words, you're going to see another channel that's going to have a series on it after I said this. I'm not saying I'm just saying it's likely. I don't like talking about stuff that I want to do in the future because people get ideas from other people. That's fine. Um, but I have noticed, like, I know that there's other channels that did Ted Bundy, but I've never heard anyone until I found information on him that had any inclination that he was possibly most likely the product of incest, which explains probably 90% of what was wrong with that motherfucker right there. But I digress. Um, the last one on the list here was requested by Laura Labs, who I haven't seen in the chat. She wanted ghost stories. So this is our last set of stories, and there's 13 of them. And it says 13 of the most convincing real life ghost stories. So we'll be the judges of that. And this first one is titled Tsunami Ghosts in Japanese Cabs. On acid trips? Tsunami ghosts on acid trips? How would they describe their firsthand experience? Telepathically? After the devastating tsunami in 2011, college student Yuka Kudo traveled to Ishinomaki, a town where 6,000 people died, and asked cab drivers if they had any unusual experiences after the disaster. Most ignored her, but 7 cab drivers talked about picking up ghost passengers, and their accounts were eerily similar. According to the drivers, the ghosts who looked like normal people would get into their cabs, give their destination, and only to disappear without paying the fare. One such passenger asked the driver to take her to a district that had been wiped out by the waves. When he told her what it was like there, she asked, "Have I died?" When he turned around to look at her, she was gone. That's really sad. This is the 4th time when I was looking for ghost stories, this story turned up, but the Bell Witch of Tennessee, so I must be destined to read this story to you tonight for some reason. Now, if you haven't heard, the story of the Bell Witch of Tennessee is one of the more famous true ghost stories in American history. The story inspired several documentaries on a major motion picture, 2005's An American Haunting. It's one of the most well documented true ghost stories ever. The story goes the Bell Witch first surfaced in the 1800s after farmer John Bell and his family. Oh my gosh, see, I'm getting tired now, so everything's going to be jumbly. Moved from North Carolina to the community of Red River, Tennessee, which later became the town of Adams. As Bell amassed more and more land in the area, eventually up to 320 acres, the family started to report a variety of strange encounters. These included finding an animal that appeared to be a hybrid between a dog and a rabbit, a series of apparent hallucinations that included night terrors about rats gnawing away at the family's beds, and eventually a series of faint whispering voices that sounded almost like old women softly singing hymns. According to historians, family members later found a vial of unknown liquid in the house. They gave a dose of the liquid to their cat, who immediately died. According to the stories, following the Battle of New Orleans, future President Andrew Jackson came to the Bell Farm to investigate the stories of a haunting, and it was he who dubbed the entity the Bell Witch. By 1820, John Bell had grown ill, and more convinced than ever that the presence in his house wished him ill. It's said that after the Bell's funeral, the ghost could be heard singing and laughing loudly in the graveyard. After Bell's death, save for a few reported encounters during which the entity bid the family farewell, the presence seemed to largely disappear from the home. Boring rational explanation is that it was rumored that the ghost had promised to return to the Bell's direct descendant 107 years later, which would have been 1935. Though the descendant in question, Dr. Charles Bailey Bell, wrote a book about the Bell Witch legend, he never mentioned having an encounter of his own. Let me see here. I don't think I'm going to read the next one because it's the Lizzie Borden house. I don't know if you guys want to hear it. Bell Witch. The reality is that she was a woman who Bell had an affair with. I thought it was someone that he stole land from, but I'm getting it confused with something else. Mm. Let me see here. Okay. Lizzie Borden. We all know about Lizzie Borden, yes? Oh no, the Stanley Hotel. I don't like to reread stuff that have been written, like a read, written. Oh, yeah, we're gonna skip those because my brain's going right out the door here. We skipped to number 5 of 12. So French Quarter Ghosts of the Hotel of Monteleone. I've never heard of this one. The hotel is beautiful, by the way. If you're planning on visiting New Orleans, you should know that it is without question the most haunted city in America. Ghostly sightings are virtually everywhere throughout the city, particularly in the famed historic French Quarter. So many hotels claim to be haunted, but one in particular boasts of a lot of ghosts. The Hotel Monteleone, sitting at 214 Royal Street. The hotel is the only high rise building in the interior of the French Quarter and has become famous for its rotating carousel bar. That sounds cool. The hotel dates back to the 1880s when Sicilian immigrant Antonio Monteleone moved to New Orleans to set up shop uh, on the site as a cobbler. He ended up taking over the nearby hotel and expanding his business, and the enterprise has continued to grow ever since. Reported ghostly sightings at the Monteleone are so common it's impossible to write about them all. Several guests have claimed to see and hear ghostly children playing in the hotel's halls, especially on the 14th floor. Additionally, based on the testimony of witnesses, the lobby area is apparently very, very haunted, like poltergeist haunted. On many nights around 8 p.m., the doors of the lobby restaurant are said to be mysteriously unlocked and then close themselves back up. A diverse group of individuals claim to have witnessed this ghostly phenomenon. Now that would be cool. Myrtle's Plantation is next. I want to know what it says. I did a thing on Chloe and Myrtle's Plantation when I did like the 5 most haunted something. Where is Ground Zero? Ground Zero is super active with ghosts. Ground Zero is in New York, where the Twin Towers were. um, let's see. Myrtle's Plantation, we've all heard of that one too, right? I'm gonna skip that one and go to Parma, Ohio's gas station ghost. The surveillance video from a Parma, Ohio gas station shows a strange, otherworldly blue fog that appears to be hovering amongst the gas pumps. Perhaps most disturbing about the ghost is the way that it appears to remain for a while before suddenly flying off in a random direction. What could it be doing there? Most of the obvious theories that it was some sort of chemical or residue in the air that was catching the light and appearing on video, that it was a bag or some other real world material that just looks fuzzy on camera and so forth, and seemed to be contradicted. No official explanation was ever offered for the gas station ghost, and after a few minutes of being caught on surveillance, it disappeared. Undead Abe? I've never heard of this theory before. Ghosts freak you out? Let's see. I don't think ghosts are the things that'll freak you out. I think ghosts are confused or an imprint on what their life was like before they passed away. But speculation, my friends, speculation. Honest Undead Abe. There are a number of strange, eerie circumstances surrounding the Lincoln assassination. In particular, the president seemed to have a premonition about his own death in a dream. He told friend Ward Hill Lamone about a strange dream in which he wandered unknowingly into a funeral being held in the White House's East Room. Unable to make out the face of the corpse, he asked a nearby guard who had died. "Who's dead in the White House?" I said. "The president," was his answer. "He was killed by assassination." Only a few days later, Lincoln himself was shot dead, felled by an assassin's bullet. His funeral was, in fact, held in the East Room of the White House. It said that Mary Todd Lincoln's first audible words following the assassination were amazement at how the president had foreseen what would happen. I mean, I would think that because of the turmoil at the time, the premonition would be pretty like, I think you would feel it in your bones, the hate emanating toward you at that point. In the years after 1865, numerous witnesses, including several future presidents, have claimed to see or interact with Lincoln's ghost, who apparently has set up permanent residence in the White House. They include Eleanor Roosevelt, who kept her sitting in Lincoln's former bedroom. Roosevelt said that she never actually saw Lincoln's ghost, but she felt his presence many times and believed him to be occasionally in the room with her. During the Roosevelt presidency, a number of other sightings occurred. A young clerk came to have seen Lincoln sitting on a bed removing a pair of boots. Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands was spending the night in the White House and claimed Lincoln woke her up by knocking at her door. First Lady Grace Goodhue wife of Calvin Coolidge, reportedly saw Lincoln standing with his arms clasped behind his back, lost in thought and staring at the Potomac. Winston Churchill and Lyndon Johnson both joked about having a conversation with the undead Lincoln, though both had also outsized personalities and were prone to such flights of fancy. I didn't know. I didn't know that they were kind of cuckoo. That's basically what they're saying, right? A number of other presidents, including Theodore Roosevelt, Herbert Hoover, and Harry Truman, have reported spooky or inexplicable goings on within the White House. I mean, it's old. I would think it's what 400 years old. No, no, I'm sorry. No, Washington was they built the White House. Wow,
Washington. Yeah.
it was still being built, but wasn't that 16 something when he was president and he served 4 consecutive terms?
Something.
So that's 400 years, right? So that house would be nearly 400 years old. So you can feel free to correct me in the chat if you know the right answer to that. I want to visit Bobby Mackey's. Me too. We passed it when we were in Ohio, coming back and forth. We were picking up. It's a long story, but we passed it, and it was like it happened so fast. I didn't even realize that we happened to pass it. Oh yeah. Um. um. Okay, I was on Truman reported spooky or inexplicable goings on within the White House, claiming they were the work of Lincoln. It's unclear, however, whether any of the men actually saw Lincoln's spirit with their own eyes. No Lincoln's ghost sightings have been reported with the White House since the Truman administration. Hillary Clinton, however, told Rosie O'Donnell that she sometimes felt creeped out in the White House. It's neat. It can be a little creepy, you know. They think there's a ghost there. It's a big old house, and when the lights are out, it's dark and quiet, and any movement at all catches your attention. I would never picture the White House completely dark. Like, do they turn the lights out at night? I don't think so, because it's kind of like a business in there.
Yeah.
Post Truman, there were numerous renovations being made to the property. Perhaps Lincoln finally moved on. He has, however, also been spotted in Ford's Theater, where he was shot, and in the burial ground in Illinois that houses his remains. Dun dun dun. Winchester Mystery House. Now, I know we all know about that, but every time I read about it, I learn something new. That's why, you can create something around yourself that keeps stuff out. And, as soon as you step in a place like Bobby Mackey's, you can feel whether it's overwhelming or not and just leave. But you're supposed to separate yourself from it. You're supposed to mentally separate yourself from it. You can experience things without it affecting you. Um, when you go into a place like that, you didn't open the portal. I think the people when you bring something into your home and you play with it and you don't know what you're doing and it's spiritual things, you're messing with things you don't know what you're messing with. When you go into a place where that's happened somehow, they don't even know really how it happened at Bobby Mackey's. Speculation, you know. You're not the one that created it. Now they can try and mess with you, but you know, you can only invite in what you're letting in. If you feel something that's overwhelming you, smart people would just leave. But there are people who do that and still have taken stuff home. Burnt it a crisp, just painted over. What? uh, it's only 200 years old? When was it built?
26 years old.
What year was it built?
1791.
1791. Wow. Did it take that many years to construct it? Or they didn't start it until soon?
Until 1800.
When did they start it? It didn't take 200 years to build a house.
1791. That was 1800.
Okay. Wow.
226.
White House is 226 years old. I'm losing my voice, so we're wrapping this up too. There's a Asheville High School ghost. But I think I'm gonna end this on the ghosts of Alcatraz because I'm literally gonna lose my voice because I've been reading for 2.5 hours. Now Alcatraz is somewhere I'd really like to go. Just because It's just fascinating, it's creepy, it's barbaric, and, since I can't exactly make it, overseas currently financially to go roam castles all over the place like I'd like to do,
That's interesting.
Alcatraz would be a cool place to go, but, um, it was first used as a military prison in the late 1850s and later served as a federal prison until 1963. I didn't know that. It's probably the most famous prison in the United States. The prison claimed that despite 36 prisoners making a total of 14 escape attempts, no prisoner had ever successfully made it off the island. There's actually an entire show about how somebody did. The most violent escapee attempt was made in 1946 when 6 prisoners attempted to flee the island, resulting eventually in the deaths of 3 inmates and 2 guards. Famous convicts held in Alcatraz included Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, James Whitey Bulger, Mickey Cohen, and Bumpy Johnson. While incarcerated in Alcatraz, Capone took to playing the banjo. Years after Capone's death and long after Alcatraz officially shut down, visitors and workers kept reporting hearing banjo music in the old shower rooms and in Capone's former cell. Because of the celebrity outlaws who have been held there, as well as the relative isolation of the rock, the rest of society, it naturally lent itself to a number of rumors, urban legends, and modern myths about what actually happened there. Cell 14D, an isolation cell, is also believed to be haunted by a ghostly figure. It's been said that in the 1940s, a prisoner locked in 14D screamed to guards that he was being attacked by a creature with glowing eyes, and that this prisoner was found dead in his cell in the next morning. Perhaps most compelling, however, is the testimony of Alcatraz ghosts. Guards. I didn't mean ghosts. I'm losing it. This is got to be the last story because I'm mentally losing it. Many of whom claim to have experienced unexplainable things while working on the rock. Many reports of guards investigating the sounds of sobbing or moaning, only to find no one there. Even a noted skeptic, and those were actual filed reports, even a noted skeptic, Warden Johnston, noted that he once believed he heard sobbing from within the building's walls. Additionally, many have claimed to have stumbled upon inexplicable smells on the island or certain spots that are notably colder than their surroundings. Visitors and currently employees at Alcatraz have also reported hearing strange noises or voices and feeling cold rushes of air, particularly in Cell Block C, the site of that deadly standoff between several prisoners and guards. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my voice completely. Can you do a card reading for me? Okay. Nino Pisano. Hi, Nino. We are actually wrapping this up, but this live stream will stay up so that you can hear it later too. Um, but I'm at the point now where I'm starting to lose my voice and my brain is too tired to keep accurately reading. I wanted to do this one thing where I did a 24-hour live read challenge, but I can't even see myself making it through it. I'd be like, oh, there goes another unicorn.
That's true.
I don't even remember the last time I stayed up all night long
I do.
on purpose. When?
I was in high school and we stayed up with my grandma.
Oh, I
Yes.
thought you meant me and you.
No. We had to keep him awake because he had some testing.
Oh, yeah. Yes, happy birthday, Zena. 12:34 a.m. Yeah. I haven't slept for very well the last few days, and whew, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. 12:34 a.m. It is indeed. Okay. So I wanted to finish reading the ghost stories, so maybe we'll have to pick up with that on the next live stream that we do. So make sure to always check the community tab so that you can put your requests in before we do live reads. I'm going to lose my voice even trying to wrap it up right now. This happens every time though we do a live stream, and I keep trying to read, and it's like, nope, my throat's done. It's done. I don't know how people can talk for like how do people do a radio show? I guess they have other people implementing in the radio show, don't they? Something like that. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to thank you for joining me for this live stream, and thank you for those who put in their requests. If you would like your request read. Make sure you always check the community tab for polls and opportunities to post your requests, as well as on Twitter. And until next time, thank you for coming. And if you're new here and you don't know how we say goodbye here, well, we have a special way that we say goodbye, and it's sort of being a mockery of people that are overly dramatic because we're not dramatic here. So, thank you for coming, and you can listen back to the live stream later. So, love you. Bye. 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 Bye.